You're in the right place. Online, on the web, and on air. All over the world.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Hope you can hear us okay in the chat room. Welcome back. Another Wednesday night. Another mad week. Probably another mad one to come. So hopefully you can hear us all okay. Can you just let us know you can hear us fine? Because we have to rely on you, as always, to be our eyes and our ears.
Well, they can all hear you anyway.
Talk radio.
You hear us, we hear you.
You're going to have to combine them two, I think, Steve. So, yes, that's what we want to do. We want to hear you tonight because we've got two young ladies coming on later on. 8:30 is the first one. We have Madeline Richardson, and if you've maybe have heard of her name before, if the face looks familiar on the poster, you will find that she has a very strong resemblance to her sister, Jacky Newcombe. Okay, she's going to be talking about auras and chakras, and there's plenty of them, I think, going around. Hopefully your aura is quite big and bright tonight, and your chakras are all aligned. So we'll see what happens there and see what she's got to tell us about all that. And then later on, around about 9:30, 4:30 in California, I think it was. We have.
I think you found that was New Mexico, Julie.
Is it?
Yeah,
Hold on, let me just double check. I said California last week. Let me just double check.
Yeah.
But either way, at about 9:30 our time, we will be talking to a lady by the name of Carla Wills-Brandon, and she actually hails from. Yeah, she lives in the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, in a 100-year-old house outside Asheville, North Carolina. Up in the hills, that's what it says. So I knew I got the Carolina bit somewhere or something like that. But anyway, she's coming on, and she's going to be talking to us about departing visions of the dying. And we know a couple of things about that. We've heard a few things about that in the past, haven't we, Steve?
Yes, a couple of family members, to be honest. That'd be nice to ask her about them.
Yeah, so that should be quite interesting. So if you've ever had a family member that says they've seen somebody before they died, perhaps Carla's got all the answers rather for you. So it should be an interesting evening. So I hope if you were with us last week, I hope you enjoyed Derek's conversation and his talk. It is now live on our website at the latest, on the slideshow for the latest podcast, along with 2 or 3 others from the past few weeks. And if you can't find anything on there from previously, you can always go to our YouTube page. You'll find them all on there at the KTPF community show. Don't forget tonight, if you would like to talk to us on the phone, wonders would cease to amaze. It would really, wouldn't it?
It would. For some reason, they don't like ringing us up on the phone.
No, they're quite scared, aren't they?
Quite shy.
We do have Madeline on the phone tonight, so the Skype will be available at ktpf.paranormalshow if you would like to ask any questions about auras and chakras. But we still have our trusted chat room. Live stream has been a little bit finicky today, so if it does go down on us at all, lose the channel sort of thing, and unable to connect, please stand by. We will try and get back to you as soon as possible. I'm not sure what they're doing, maybe updating or something. And the same goes for you. If you lose us, please refresh the page and come back. Okay. I hope Sue is feeling better today. Not too bad, very tired, so hopefully it won't be too late at night for me.
But that's mainly because you had a late night and an early morning.
Yeah, I had to get up early this morning for blood tests and ECGs and God knows what else. So I'm getting there. Thank you very much. Basically, for those of you who didn't know, I had a TIA a few weeks ago, and you may hear me slur a bit now and again. Okay, so I apologise for that. Okay, so Steve, what a week we've had, and what a week we've got coming up. We've got a MBS this weekend, Steve did forget to mention it on the Paranormal Events for tonight, because it wasn't on paranormalevents4you.com. But we are actually at an MBS in Derby. That's right, isn't it? Yeah,
Yes, the Roundhouse.
Yes, the Roundhouse in Derby this weekend. We will be there Saturday and Sunday, talking about paranormal, what we do, what we've got on offer, what events we've got coming up, and we will be pushing also the 10 places that we've got left for the Nottingham Galleries of Justice, if you fancy joining us. So we're only taking 14 people.
Yes, because we're sharing the night with
Simply Ghost.
Simply Ghost, which is most of you don't know is Joe's group.
Yes. So and Rosie and Stuart when they come on. So yes. So there's quite a few things happening there. So if you're in the vicinity of Derby this weekend, why don't you pop down and see us and say hello and have a chat. On Sunday we are also doing at 4:00 a demonstration at the Roundhouse of what is entailed in a paranormal investigation. We was asked if we was actually investigating the Roundhouse. It's not as such, but we do a few, basically a few experiments in the hour that we do the demonstration. You never know. We've had contact before, haven't we, Steve?
We have, yeah, but the powers that be there don't want us to actually do an investigation.
No, this is it. So it's not an investigating place as it is. So if you are there, pop in and say hello. And if you're around at 4:00, come to our free demonstration. Excuse me, I've got a bit of dry lips. Well, anyway, that's for those who can see on the camera, because if you're watching on YouTube or listening on YouTube later on, you won't see what's going on in the hub. So, who we got on the chat room at the moment, by the way?
Aha. Are you ready?
Yes.
We have Rug.
Rug?
Yep,
The Rug?
We have the Rug.
Okay.
We have Green Lee.
Hi, Green Lee.
We have Aggie, Simply Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
Stuart's just popped in.
Hi, Stuart and Rosie.
Yeah. And Helen.
Helen's there.
That's about it for now.
There's a really dark one there. I can't see that very well. Oh, it's you, Shadow 1.
That's because you got a black background.
That's because I've got a black background. I don't think I can change it, actually, to be honest with you. So unless I go over to there, but then again, I won't see what's going on in the actual the actual studio room. So.
You're on Windows 7, just split screen.
Oh yeah, that's what I can do, can't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Split screen, do that.
Push that one over to that side.
And that one over that side.
All the way.
All the way. Hang up. Right, there
you
we go.
There you go on both.
So let's take that off while I'm here, because we don't need that, do we? Pause. That's it. I don't need that bit on. Right. Okay. Let's get the show on the road, shall we? And see what's happening.
Observation. In
the observations. We didn't really find much this week. To be honest with you. Where's Mr. Mahogany? Mr. Neil is not very well today, but he might pop into the chat room. You never know. This evening, but I'm not quite sure whether he will or not. We'll see what happens.
Has he got the man flu?
He has the dreaded lurg. So that's what he says. He's very much lurged. So,
well, it serves him right for overdoing it in the gym.
Yes.
Because that's what he was doing the other night. He put it up on Facebook.
Right.
He did a big gym session.
Did he?
Yep.
Right. Okay. So I'm not really having much fun of this.
You playing with your screen over there?
It's being awkward to me, so I'll probably have to leave it as it is, to be honest with you. Right. Okay. Let's put that back where it was.
There you go.
Right. Okie dokie.
Where are we going with the observations?
Yeah, we'll have to send him some collective healing. Right. Okay. As I say, please excuse my voice at the moment. And as I say, if I slur, don't worry about it. I'm not drunk. Right. Observations. First of all, we hit the conspiracy trail. Operation Acoustic Kitty attempted to turn out otherwise ordinary pet cats into secret listening devices. The experimental project was attempted in the 1960s in an attempt to find an effective way to eavesdrop on the private conversations of foreign officials. To accomplish this, researchers have augmented a common household cat.
Don't you mean augmented?
Oh, sorry, augmented. God, he's correcting me already.
Well, I can't see it, but
A common.
they can't augment a cat.
Would you like to read this? Shut up. A common household cat with surveillance equipment, including a microphone in its ear canal and a small radio transmitter in the base of its skull. The cat was then trained to go and sit next to the target so that it could pick up what was being said. To test the effectiveness of their creation, CIA staff members drove the experimental feline to a local park and released it in the hope that it would let them eavesdrop on the conversation of two people sitting on a bench. Unfortunately, things didn't quite go to plan. The cat was utterly disinterested in its agenda of national security and instead decided to wander into the street, where it was promptly run over by a taxi. Ah! The project was abandoned soon afterwards. The problem was that the cats are not especially trainable. They don't have the same deep-seated desire to please a human master that dogs do, and the agency's RoboCat didn't seem terribly interested in national security. So I think they've tried again, but it isn't really working. So that's that one. We're going to go to science and technology. See what you think about this one. A newly discovered virus has reignited the debate over the classification of viruses as living creatures. In order to qualify as a living creature, the organism must have a genome to be able to grow, replicate and to evolve by adapting to its environment over successive generations. Viruses are generally considered to be primitive particles of DNA and do not meet these criteria. But new research into a virus that can steal its host immune system has turned this idea on its head. Humans and other living creatures possess an adaptive immune system capable of developing defences and passing these down to successive generations of cells. The discovery of such a system present in a virus has grayed the area between biological entity and living creature and is likely to fuel further debate on the subject for years to come. For a long time, science has deemed viruses, which are little packages of infective material that can only replicate inside living organisms, to be primitive particles of DNA and RNA termed as biological entity, thus not living. So next time you get a cold, think about it. What do you think? And stop laughing, because you end up choking yourself. Right. Remember a few weeks ago we was on about animals being washed up to the shore? Well, it's happened again. On Saturday the 16th of March, thousands of dead fish were washed up in Brazil. Authorities are working to remove thousands of dead fish from Brazil's Rodrigo de Freitas lagoon. A tourist attraction in the region, the lagoon has been turned into a sea of dead fish following two recent storms. It is believed that the storms caused large amounts of organic matter to be washed in the lagoon, decreasing the oxygen content to the point where its first population couldn't survive. The situation wasn't helped by the fact that at the time large numbers of fish had entered the lagoon to spawn. Authorities are now working to remove more than 20 tonnes of dead fish from the water. In 2016, the lagoon will be used as one of the venues for the Olympics rowing event. A large amount of organic matter that entered the lagoon as a result of two recent large storms that consumed oxygen and brought it down to the critically low levels. Carlos Alberto Muniz, the municipal environmental security, told Effie, whoever Effie was, I'm assuming it's their newspaper or TV people. So-
Fish supper, anybody?
The fish supper, yeah. The world is strange, and I must admit, it does cough up a lot of weird things at times. So,
It does indeed.
right, workers unearth Black Death plague pit. Well, while you were sitting there getting ready for the Red Nose Day, more than a dozen skeletons were discovered buried beneath a busy part of central London. During the 14th century, the Black Death wiped out as many as 200 million people across Europe, with records indicating that up to 50,000 people may have been buried in parts of London, which once referred to as no man's land. Workers unearthed the skeletons below a road in Farringdon during excavations for London's Crossrail project. Historians believe that the neat arrangement of the bodies suggests that the victims were buried during a period before the plague became a pandemic. It is likely that the skeletons will be retrieved for study and research purposes. For 7 centuries, they have lain beneath the feet of commuters in one of the busiest parts of central London. 13 skeletons lying in 2 neat rows, 2.4 metres beneath a road in Farringdon, have been unearthed by excavations for London's Crossrails project. Is it Farrington or Farringdon? Because this article seems to make 2 references in the same place. I'll let you be the judge of that. But 13 skeletons. I wonder if there's 13 ghosts. Okay, let's just see what Stuart's put here. Have you heard about all the pigs in Shanghai and China? Reports estimate an incredible 14,000 carcasses have been reported in the Shanghai River. Yeah, there's been a lot of all this coming up, Stuart, to be honest with you.
That particular one, as they put there, they think it's from a pig farm upriver, but they don't know how or why the pig should end up in the river.
No.
But it did happen either last year or the year before as well.
Yeah, there has been quite a few things like that. There was talking about things washed up and found and stuff. There was have you heard the story about the new dinosaur that's been named after a little girl that was found on a beach recently? The little girl, she's only about 5, I think. I'm just trying to find the story now. She's only about 5, and basically she loves looking for these sort of things, and basically they've named it after her. I'll see if I can find it and let you know. But her name was Daisy something or other. I can't think what her name was now. But yeah, she's really into this sort of thing. And oh, there it is, Daisy Morris. Yeah, let me just tell you quickly about this. Daisy Morris found, they've called it Vectidraco Daisy morrisii, a crow-sized species of Pterosaurus, while fossil hunting in the Isle of Wight. That's where it was. She's only 5, and she stumbled across a completely new species of flying dinosaur, which ended up being named after her. And she's found the fossil at Atherfield Beach in Isle of Wight. She found it in 2009, and they've only just named it after her. Took it to the local dinosaur expert, Martin Simpson. So well done, Daisy. That's what I say to that.
Well, didn't they say it was about the size of a crow?
Yeah, I think so.
It's only a small dinosaur.
Yeah. Right, here's a couple of weird ones for you. Okay, to finish off this week's observations. As I say, there's not many of them. There's not much paranormal news going around, to be honest with you, unless you want to know about UFOs and stuff like that.
And chupacabra in Chile. Apparently, it's been going crazy of late.
Is it?
Apparently, yeah.
Oh, God.
Lots of reports all over Chile.
Who remembers Jackass? Okay, well, the star Ryan Dunn, drunk. If you remember, he crashed in his Porsche in West Goshen, Pennsylvania, back in the summer of 2011, killing himself and a passenger. Obviously, he was drunk. And apparently, someone recovered some small parts from the crash and is attempting to sell them on Craigslist. Read a lot about this craziness of late.
Engine parts.
Yeah, the posting, which comes from Philadelphia, offers up the parts small enough to fit inside a shoebox for $300. Apparently, the original collector doesn't want them anymore because they may be haunted. The seller's ad says, "A week after the accident, I went to the accident and scooped up minor parts I saw lying on the ground. The parts are all remotely tiny and all fit in a shoebox. I don't want them anymore because weird things," didn't see that, "weird things has happened since I put it under my bed. I guess it's because it's a weird thing to have, but I was a huge Jackass fan and thought it would be a cool something to have. If you want proof that they are his bits, I have pictures of the crash site I took myself. I guess you really can find anything on Craigslist." So, mind you, that there was a thing about James Dean's car, wasn't it? That was haunted for some reason. That seemed to have quite a lot of phenomena around it.
It was definitely cursed.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, the last one is, which is actually not last week but the week before. I believe you might have seen Tony Toppin on This Morning recently. We did watch it and he was with a woman. But this is from the week before, I think, because I didn't recognise the lady. But a British woman appeared on the popular ITV television show This Morning last week to talk about the quite literally out of this world orgasms she experienced thanks to visitations of sex-crazed extraterrestrials. Yes, you did hear me right. Okay.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if I heard it right either.
Yes, you did hear me right. Stephanie Cohen.
I was about to correct you, so you sure it's not organisms?
Stephanie Cohen, a self-described psychic, says the Greys have been visiting for quite some time now, and she even went so far as to say they are capable of giving her a better sexual encounter than any human counterpart. Should I continue? Greenlee said we recorded it and watched it.
I'm not going to repeat what Charlotte said.
No, I saw what you said. Oh, and she also has her own UFO to fly out to the solar system with. Cohen claims the encounter happened mainly at night, and more often than not, the sexual encounters she experiences seem to happen while she is asleep. She also went on to tell journalists that her grey visitors appear under the guise of octopus people and even cat people. He is an octopus man. He stays quite close to me, she told the presenters. Like a spirit boyfriend, well, not a boyfriend, a good spirit friend. He happens to be from the octopus race. All of them indulge in sex, but particularly the cat people are extremely highly charged sexually, and it is part of the cat people culture. Okay. When host Holly Willoughby asked Stephanie if she might just be dreaming all of this up, Stephanie actually agreed, sort of. A dream is a friendly way of letting you know what you've been doing without scaring you. That's what dreams really are. People would actually be afraid if they were face to face with an alien. So what do you think to that? So now you know what Stephanie Cohen's idea of a dream is. So when you're dreaming, please be careful.
I'm taking the fish knife to bed. We get an octopus man coming in our bedroom. We're having sushi tomorrow.
So when you go to bed, please be careful what you dream. Okay, because you never know, it might come true. Well, there you go. A couple of weird ones there.
Deb reckons she was on magic mushrooms.
Greenlee said her hair actually scared me. Philip Schofield scared Charlotte. Right, night everyone. I'm off to bed. That was quick. Thought you might want to know about auras and chakras. You never know. There might be a little bit of... Oh, didn't mean it. Come on, come back.
She's just put LOL.
I know, but we lost one person. Right, so...
I think they've gone to find the octopus.
Poor Elle has been left alone. Yeah, poor Elle has been left alone, and they found this woman instead. Right, well, I'm going to contact this young lady, Madeline, and I don't know what I'm looking in there for. The phone number's not in there. Let's just make sure I'm recording still. So, and we'll find out a bit more about chakras and auras. So I'm sure we'll have a few questions from Reiki Debs, seeing as she works with them, and anybody else who works with them. So please get your questions ready, and we'll find out what it's all about. So let me just find her number, and we'll give her a call. So it's a pity Neil's not here, isn't it? Really, he could have listened to that last one. Could have given us his opinion. Wouldn't he, Steve?
Yeah, you could definitely.
You know what I mean? So, right. Might remind him of that house clearance we went to. With the lady with the whip.
Don't remind him of that one. That one scared him.
It did a bit, didn't it? Right, okay, let's clear some of this, and we'll give Madeline a call and see what happens. Right, bear with me while I just make sure I can get hold of her. Got a message on here, I'll have to check it when we finish. Hi, Madeline. Hi, give me a minute, I'll just put you live on the air. Right, okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Right, let's make sure everyone can hear you in the chat room. So let us know if you can hear Madeline, please, ladies and gentlemen. This is Madeline Richardson, and can you just explain what you are in life, obviously?
What I am.
Yeah, what do you do?
Well, I have two different jobs. I'm an author, and I've co-written a book with my sister Jacky Newcombe, who is also known as the Angel Lady.
Mm-hmm.
And we wrote the story of when our father passed and the communication that we had after he died. So that's one of my hats that I put on.
Right.
And I also write for a column and do radios and so on. And the other thing that I do is I'm a guidance officer with a college, one of the top 10 colleges in the UK, actually. And so completely different role.
Yeah.
But I do guidance, and I work with unemployed people and help them onto courses and hopefully back into work. So quite a variation going on there.
Right, okay. So hopefully, nobody said, I'm assuming everyone can hear you okay. They haven't actually said
Yes,
there's a
they
problem.
did.
Oh,
They
good.
did come
That's
back
all
and
right
said
then.
yes.
Oh, good.
That's okay then. Right, well, we're actually recording this, so it will come on YouTube later.
Okay, brilliant.
Okay. Now, you're going to talk to us about auras and chakras, okay?
Yeah.
Now, first of all, let's start with auras.
Okay.
What is an aura? I'm looking at it. Some people say to me it's a bit like
Ready Breck
the
Man.
Ready Breck advert.
Yes, that's a very good description.
Yeah.
I usually sort of seen as a glow of energy extending out from the body.
Mm-hmm.
It's our energy field. So the intensity can vary from just visible to brilliantly colourful. The visible area of an aura can expand outwards from the body anywhere from sort of an inch or two to maybe a foot or more. Mm-hmm. It's possible that our aura extends much further, I think, to allow us to stay connected and linked to all other energies around us.
Right. Okay. So, and what would they actually, what colours would they actually be?
Well, an aura can be any colour that you can imagine. Sometimes it can be a solid shade. Yeah. Often there's swirls and splashes of other colours sort of penetrating the main colour of the aura. Constantly changing due to our emotions and our moods. The colour can sort of closest to the body is known as the life colour, and this usually stays the same.
Yeah.
Now, I had my aura photograph taken over successive years, which is quite interesting to look at the change as it moves through. Same photographer, I'd sort of been to a spiritual fair down in Cornwall, and very interesting results, and I would recommend anybody has it done. So it's just having a look at the first one. The first one I've got here is 2004, and I've got quite a lot of yellow or gold. I think it's gold above me, with red coming out to one side and blue coming in. Now, gold, if we're just looking at the positives here, it says wisdom, expansion, achievement, mind, soul connection, coming into the Christ light, wise old sage outlook, which is quite nice. But, you know, what does that all mean? And I think there are positives and negatives to a lot of the colours that are coming out of the aura. And you can interpret and read them the more that you learn about it. Moving through to the following year, I've got quite what's called a magenta aura with some white coming in.
Yeah.
And again, with magenta and white, you have got negatives as well as positives, so I'll read you some of those. Magenta is realization of spiritual purpose, expressed through physical incarnation, feminine, principal intuition, but also hyperactive, nervous tension, without balance, wanting to run, and shyness. So you can pick up the things that you feel are relevant to you.
Yeah.
And then moving through into the following year, you can see the pink disappearing and the white coming in. So it's sort of this transition that you can see through the movement over the years. And I've got quite a lot of white going on. Prayer, faith, precision, guidance. Interesting that I do guidance for a living. Connection to source. But also seclusion, confusion. And, you know, there's a few negatives in there as well. So it depends on your own interpretation. And I think, you know, we get quite good at interpreting those colours.
Yeah.
If we've got a guideline to work with. So I don't know if you've ever had your aura photographed.
No, I haven't actually.
Very interesting. Very interesting to have a look.
Yeah. So it is possible to do then, to have your aura photographed?
It is, yes. There's a special type of camera, and you sit in a chair, put your hands on sort of a vibrational box.
Yeah.
And there's sort of a handprint where you put it, and it connects to the energy, and it can photograph the energy around an object. So that is a very interesting thing to do. However, you can learn to see the aura.
Yeah.
And everybody can do this. And I did write a quick guide to seeing the aura. And it's the best thing to do is, if you've got a couple of people, ask someone to stand in front of a plain, light-coloured wall in a dimly lit room. Sit about 8 feet away, and you need to be able to see their entire body, and a decent amount of wall space, really. Keep your eyes focused straight out in front of you, and stare with concentration at the top of the head. Then you have to relax your eyes and become aware of your peripheral vision. So don't look directly at the person. Allow your eyes to become unfocused. A bit like when you look at one of those puzzles.
Yeah.
That's got another sort of picture within it, within the pattern. And you should be able to start to see movement or colour around the person. And I've tried this and it does work. And with practice, keep your eyes relaxed, prevent your vision from focusing on the person, and you will begin to see an outline, either moving or static, or sort of a brighter colour, a light around somebody. So we can practice that at home, just to prove to yourself that there is something there, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you think of everything has an atomic structure. Okay, there's atoms in everything. So that is an electrical charge, if you like.
Yeah.
Every atom of every substance is comprised of electrons and protons, and those are in constant movement. So it's a sort of electrical and magnetic energy vibration. And if you think the atoms of all sort of animate life, so people, trees, animals, they're much more easily detected and experienced. And those are the fields that you can see emanating off. It's like a vibration. Everything's vibration. And that's really what's going on with an aura.
Right. And I believe that you can boost your aura as well when you're well, or
that's right.
happy.
And good health is ideal for a good aura. So, I mean, as a rule of thumb, I got something here as well, where there are things that obviously not good for the aura.
No.
And it's fairly standard stuff. So what you would expect, including poor diet, lack of exercise, lack of fresh air, lack of rest. Stress can cause sort of a weak aura. Alcohol, drugs, tobacco, negative habits, and that type of thing can all cause a weak aura. And obviously, if you reverse all of those things, so a healthy lifestyle, you're more likely to have a strong auric field.
Right, okay. Now, we've heard about grey auras. What's your opinion on grey auras?
Grey auras, I think, again, it can be sometimes somebody who isn't overly well. Sometimes there is different opinions, and I think people can sort of say, oh, this isn't somebody who's terribly healthy, or it might be negativity. But I wouldn't like to, if somebody has a grey aura, I wouldn't automatically say that they're not a good person or anything like that. But it may be that they're carrying around some heavy baggage or things that I don't mean in a physical sense. It may be that they are unwell, and could do with a boost, and perhaps some meditation or positive things going on, positive thinking, to boost your aura.
Deb said that she went to a stall at one of the MBSs and she felt as though they were a bit too close and therefore reacted into the aura, into her aura, and interrupt it and change it. Can that happen?
Oh, definitely. I mean, your aura is affected by, and like I said earlier, you can, I feel that the aura does sort of spread out further than we can see. And so we have this connection with everybody else and everything else around us. And sometimes it can be that you go into a room and that can affect your aura because it might be a negative atmosphere or that type of thing. And I think if somebody, often we say somebody's standing in my space, they're too close to me, and it's because they are in close proximity to your aura. And that, you can feel it, you can have that effect, and you want to physically stand back from them because it's like, okay, you're too close to me, you're in my aura. And auras sort of connect, and you can feel that. And I think lots and lots of people have had that experience where, don't stand so close to me.
So,
I got a question.
And I think that, again, that can show up in a photograph.
My husband's got a question for you, Steve. Maggie?
Hi, Maggie.
Hiya.
I was wondering, we've all heard of psychic vampires. Is there a similar thing with auras? Because obviously, if somebody's getting too close to you, aura, would they be affecting your energy?
I think that depends on their energy, but yes, again, that can happen. I think if somebody can certainly drain your energy just by you being in their company. And sometimes that's more of the fact that they have a lot of problems and they are offloading onto you, and you take that on board. But sometimes we don't even need to have that speech, that conversation. It can just be that you can be drained by somebody else. So it's as well to sort of protect yourself, if you like, perhaps in a psychic bubble or something like that. And lots of people practice that just to keep themselves whole and healthy, and be careful not to be too drained by people around you if they're not, if they're feeling rather negative. And I think that's true with all areas of life, really.
Yeah, I can imagine. We've got a question in the chat room. Charlotte would like to know what your views are on etheric, sorry, let's see if I can get my tongue around this. Etheric auras around standing stones and ancient sites.
Okay, well, I think because, as I said earlier, everything is made up of atoms, whether that's a stone, a rock, a tree, an animal, whatever it might be, everything is made up of atoms, and they're all vibrating at different speeds. So because everything is made up of vibrations, everything is emanating an aura, and I think that there is definitely a field around ancient stones, and everything else, everything. So because stones have been there for so many years, because they've had thousands of years of perhaps worship, people, imbuing them with their own spiritual needs and uses, then they're probably going to be more, give off a bigger aura than perhaps, pebble on the beach, something like that.
Yeah.
But everything is giving off an aura, and many of those things, you can capture that through photography.
Slightly change the subject a bit. Would you say in psychometry that it could work the same with that? You're actually picking up the aura around the object.
Yes, that can happen too.
Right. So that's possible.
I've played and practiced with psychometry, and I think you do. You pick up the energy from something. Most things carry an energy with them from their life, from where they've been, what they've done. Almost like when you go into a building and you feel that it's perhaps, a sad atmosphere, or this is a happy house, because there are things sort of almost held in the walls of a place. And the same, I think, is true that something can be imbued with an energy. So I'm sure that is, you can pick that up in an inanimate object.
Yeah.
So that's a good way of being able to read an object, is by, picking up on the aura of that, the energy of it.
We've got another question in the chat room. Ghost Rider has asked, can you use your normal digital camera, or do you have to have a specific camera for this?
It is normally a specific camera. I mean, I'm not very up on new digital cameras, so whether you would be able to use that for picking up an aura, I don't know. The official sort of it's a Curlian
camera.
Yeah, camera, which is set to pick up this auric field, and that's what was used when I had my photographs taken.
Yeah.
So whether they can be adapted and use this particular field, but I know it was a while ago, and technology moves on. But I had to place my hands on this like a black box, and that helped pick up however the energy was distributed to be able to be photographed. Very interesting.
Yeah. So that, it's amazing what you can do with stuff these days, to be honest.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Out a lot.
I mean, I have to say, I haven't been for a long time, and I think it'd be very interesting to see, if that's changed again since the last time I had it done. Certainly like to go back and have it done again. Yeah.
So is it, excuse me, is it mainly at the MBS shows that you find it, Mind, Body and Spirit shows?
It is. That's where I've seen these specialist photographers. But whether you can now perhaps do it, get something done booked online, I don't know. I haven't researched that recently.
Yeah. Somebody says it's called electrophotography.
Sorry?
Somebody said it's called electrophotography.
Is it electromagnetic?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I think that the Curlian is the original person that started it, if you like, and was able to capture it through specific, use of this type of camera.
Right. So, from one colours to another.
Yeah.
Chakras. Now we know the basic 7.
Yes.
Yes, but I believe there's loads of them.
Well, you've got your main 7, if you like. Obviously, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet.
Yeah.
You've also got one that can be described as white light, or a combination of all colours.
Yeah.
Which is sort of top of the head.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's sort of pretty ancient.
Yeah.
The word chakra comes from sort of a wheel or circle in Sanskrit. And we know there's 7 main energy centres, or possibly 8, if you like, spirals of energy. But within that, and between that, I think there are more. But of course, that's open to interpretation, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
But very good to work on. And in fact, you could sort of say the 8th chakra that surrounds our body is the aura or auric body.
Yeah.
So all interconnected and interlinked.
All right. So what is your theory on chakras? What is your synopsis on it, sort of thing?
Okay. Chakras are energy centres.
Uh-huh.
Okay, where life energy flows into and out of our aura. Their function is to vitalise the physical body and bring about development of our self-consciousness. So their existence is well documented into traditions of the Far East, appear in Buddhist and Hindu religions, associated with our physical, mental and emotional health and interactions.
Yeah.
Because our health is obviously not solely a physical issue. And thankfully many therapists are now treating patients in a holistic manner.
Mm-hmm.
We are mind, body and spirit, and they don't sort of perform separately.
No.
So our experiences affect us, both positively and negatively.
Mm-hmm.
Our negative thoughts and experiences can display themselves physically over time, perhaps with sickness. So working with the appropriate colours can help to dissolve negativity, remove blocks and rebalance the body.
Mm-hmm.
And there are negatives and positives, again, within those colours. And it's working out where the issues are, what the problems are, what's manifesting, and whether you can interpret that and, understand that there may be a blockage in one of your chakras.
Mm.
And I'll give you, some examples. The throat, I think, is the most, well, throat and the heart, I think, are the easiest to think about.
Yeah.
So the throat would be blue, and you can associate that with communication. So, if sometimes you're thinking, well, what is it I'm not saying? I've got constantly got a sore throat, I've got tonsillitis, I've got problems there. Do I need to be expressing myself? Do I need to communicate more? Do I need to look at those things? So that's a fairly straightforward look at how you can read into these things. Sometimes, yes, I've just got a cough, I've got a cold, I've got a problem. If you get this recurring, why? Is there something else I could look at? Is there something I should be doing about this? Do I have a blockage that I can work on? And I think it's useful to look at the whole thing instead of just treating symptoms.
Mm.
Is there something else that I can look at and do here?
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Now, aligning them. What would you say was the best way to do it?
Well, I think one of the best ways is known is that you work from the base up. So you work first with the root chakra, or the red chakra, and proceed up through the body. And there are different ways that you can work on those. There's different hand movements. There's, I personally would go and get that done professionally.
Yeah.
Somebody who either practices, you can do things like working with Reiki, healing, and that type of thing. Spinning of the chakras, making sure they're spinning in the right direction, that type of thing. It's all things that you take on faith, if you like, because these things are difficult to see, understand, and so on. But you can tune in and become aware and feel some of these things if you have the mind to. So I think that's always useful. But yes, I would probably go and get professional help.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I do have a pack of stones that I use.
Okay.
You know, lay down and put them in the appropriate place, because you can use gemstones, can't you?
You can, yes. I think there's a picture of me somewhere with stones on me on my website. So do you use the colours that match the chakra colours?
Yeah, you sort of have the crystal one for your crown.
Yep.
The God, now you're going to test me.
Can you remember?
Amethyst for your third eye.
Yes.
The blue one, is it lapis lazuli for your throat?
Yeah, that sounds good, yeah.
Okay. Then you've got your heart. Is that carnelian?
Or
Or is that further down?
Yeah.
Let's
have a look.
Or is it the aquamarine, or it was a venture or something? Green one. No, there's a green one. There's a citrium one. I can't remember the rest. So there's a jasper, I think.
Yeah.
I think the jasper's the root one, isn't it? I can't remember. They're in the other room. Can't remember. But I always have to look at the card to make sure.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
So make sure I'm putting them in the right place. But
so you would lie down and just relax. I guess do some deep breathing.
Yeah.
And place these stones on the appropriate centres as you go down through the body.
Yeah.
So obviously, I think most people would be aware that we've said white or clear light is the top of the head. Then you've got indigo on the brow or third eye.
Yeah.
Then you're coming down through blue.
Then green.
Road, green is heart.
Yeah. Yellow, orange.
Yellow would be solar plexus.
Yeah. Then the orange, the carnelian.
That's like orange, normally sort of related around the sexual organs.
Yeah.
And then the red is your base chakra, or perhaps at the bottom of the spine, base or root chakra. So those are the colours that we would work with.
Yeah.
Run down through your body, and as I say, working with gemstones is brilliant way to open them. Or working with people who do, as I say, some kind of healing or Reiki. Even, well, I would say non-touching healing, or laying on a pan.
Somebody told me you could actually do them with a dowsing crystal, but
yeah, I think dowsing would probably work, because what you're doing is, especially if you're spiraling with your dowsing object over the centre to help open up and release those spinning centres. So all very interesting.
Yeah, I have noticed a couple of times when I've had the crystals on me, there's like a tense feeling under one of the chakras, on one of the chakras, like my heart or something.
Right.
And I assume that is the one that needs sorting out more than anything.
I think that may be true. I think people do very often feel where energy is needed, if you like.
Yeah.
The chakras spin in a clockwise direction, so it's useful to know that that's what you're working with. And as I say, our health relates to how we think and feel, and very useful to have this balance down through our bodies. And a lot of it, I think, is common sense, makes sense when you think about energy centres running through the body and how we're affected by that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. So, but what made you get into all this sort of stuff anyway, Madeline?
Oh, good question. I think to start with, it was probably curiosity.
Yeah.
I remember reading one of my first books, probably in the late 80s.
Yeah.
Or mid-80s, which was a Shirley MacLaine book called Out on a Limb.
Yeah.
And I only read that because I was interested in autobiographies.
Uh-huh.
And it kind of blew me away with all the things that Shirley MacLaine came up with. And I continued to sort of research and started researching life after death and that type of thing. Went to a few of the early mind, body and spirit fairs just out of curiosity, because I can be quite cynical, which I think is healthy. And I like to prove things. I like the science behind things, which is why I'm interested in things like atoms and how they work with the electrons and so on, because to me, that makes a lot of sense. You know, the electrons and the protons, we know they're spinning, that we know they're giving off an energy.
Yeah.
So I felt that I wanted to research it, and that's really where I came in. I started to research it, and I wanted to find answers. And even in the book that we wrote about Dad, where we were looking at extra senses and how limited our field of vision is, you know, we can't see in the infrared, we can't see in the ultraviolet. Lots of animals can. We know those sources are there, but just because we can't see them doesn't mean they don't exist. We know that they do. And I think that's crucial to me, because, you know, just because somebody says, oh, you know, I'm not convinced that that's real or that's there.
Yeah.
There are lots of things that we can't see, feel, hear, touch, taste. Even a rabbit has more taste buds than we do. Again, for example, goldfish, I think, are the only species that can see in, or one of the few that can see in ultraviolet and infrared. And I wanted to know about these things, that just because we can't see something doesn't mean to say it's not there. And we know scientifically these things are there. So therefore, you know, what else can we apply that to? And that's my angle. That's where I came in. So when I do look at something, I sort of, in the words of Sherlock Holmes, you know, I make sure that when you've eliminated everything else, you know, when you've eliminated the impossible, whatever's left, however improbable, is probably true. And a lot of these things make sense to me.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm coming from.
Right. And this book about your dad, just let us know what that's all about.
Well, it's the journey of a very wonderful, wonderful man, who was very loved by all of his family and his little girl in particular.
Yeah.
And he went through some terrible illnesses, and we lived through that. And then when we did finally lose him, I think what we wanted to do was we wanted to share the story of his life in the first part of the book, or early in the book, so that you felt like you knew him. And then when we experienced messages and phenomena after he died, we shared the type of things that were happening. And because you'd known him in his life, they made sense to the reader.
Yeah.
So we covered his death, and we covered the things that happened. And because we started recording them quite early on, we sort of, my sister and I said, we ought to write this down. We ought to make a record of this. And so everybody in the family and friends, extended family, knew that, you know, we'd say, well, what happened then? Oh, well, I had this vivid dream about your dad. Oh, tell us about it. Or, do you know, this happened to me. This was very strange, this coincidence. And we just wrote down everything everybody told us. And because people knew we were writing it down, they would come to us and feel happy to share.
Yeah.
I think that's the key. And by the time everybody shared, we had many, many experiences. So which singly you think, you know, people might experience the odd thing, put it down to coincidence. But because people shared with us collectively, we had a book.
Yeah.
And said we need to share this, because collectively it's very impressive, the things that happened after he died. So that's what we shared.
Right.
And it was a tough journey, as you can imagine. We were grieving. I think having then to relive some of his terrible illnesses. You know, my dad had a brain tumour, which he survived. He had gallstones, he had cancer, he had, you know, he was the ultimate bionic man. So it's very hard to go through those things, and we cried a lot. But we also laughed too, and I think ultimately, because it's a story of life after death, it's rather heartwarming, and I think people do get comfort from it.
So your dad, Ron,
that's right,
passed away in February 2008.
Yes.
And as I say, you've written this book with your sister called Call Me When You Get to Heaven.
That's right. It's currently on Kindle for $4.99.
Right. we've just had a comment on that Helen Hobbs 1974. She's actually recently got it, and she's about to start reading it.
Oh, good. Good.
She also asked a question earlier. Let me just see if I can find it. Have you ever had a past life regression? And if so, what was you? What were you?
I've had many past life regressions.
You have?
I have. Many, many years ago. I haven't done it for some time. But probably, let me think, 1991, I think, was the first time I did a past life regression. And it was it sounds very strange now when I say it was a self help, if you like, a tape that a cassette tape that we had with a magazine from Kindred Spirit many years ago, and put this in the tape machine, and it took you through lots of relaxation and meditation, and ultimately led you backwards through various steps into a past life. But it was very safely done, and I was very happy to have that done, and had a number of different lifetimes that I can remember quite vividly even now, even though that was rather a long time ago. And very interesting. One that I can remember very well was being in ancient Rome, and I was a Christian, and I was in a Colosseum, or an arena, and I was actually going to be thrown to some lions, which is very odd. But I mean, it was long before sort of any films depicting this era, and I didn't really know much about the time. But I can remember standing there. I can remember what I was wearing. I can remember touching the cold stone, marble, and lots of textures and feelings. And the journey actually took me to the point of death. That was the whole point of it, to experience that, but to be able to move out of my body and look down at it without having the emotion attached to it.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting. And you could also identify if there was anybody from that previous life who was also in this life. And I did identify a member of my family, actually, who had been in that life with me then. And I've done various past life regressions since then, including one of my sisters, Diane. She trained as a hypnotherapist and got all her qualifications. And I've sat with her while she has regressed other people, and I've taken notes for them. And I've also been regressed by her myself. So that was probably, last time I did it was probably about 5 years ago. I haven't done it for a while. But all of them have been fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And they're all memories. They feel like memories. They're not fleeting. They're not sort of dreams or jumbled.
No.
They come back as memories.
Right.
So very, very interesting.
And you've studied this, haven't you, with hypnoanalysis?
I have, yes. I've done hypnoanalysis as a qualification, and just learnt about, what's typical me, done the proper research behind the subject as well. Yeah, that's right.
Right, okay. And you've written, have you written many books apart from that one, or is that just the only one you've done with your sister?
That's the only book that we, or if you like, that I've published. I've got another couple of books on different subjects, and I'm also partway through a novel with my sister Jacky. But the trouble is she lives in Staffordshire and I live in Cornwall.
Whereabouts in Cornwall?
I live down near St Agnes.
Right, okay.
Not far. I work in Truro and I also work in Newquay.
It's a lovely place, Cornwall.
Yeah, absolutely stunning.
Yeah, once you go through St Austell, it all just calms down, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I love the place.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and lots of mystical and magical things going on here. Nobody bats an eyelid. It's all very accepting.
Yeah.
So that's another good thing. Lots of obviously ancient stones and stone circles and holy wells and plants, lots of ley lines. So fascinating place to live.
Well, this is it, yeah. So, well, it's been great talking to you, Madeline.
Well, lovely to speak to you.
As I say, with your father, obviously, during the book and everything, Have you had other visions, other visits, or stuff like that come through for you?
There were.
Or was it a case of, no disrespect, but was it a case of while you were doing the book, it was another way of helping you get through the book as well, sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the book, don't get me wrong, the book took a long time.
Yeah.
We were probably working on the book 2 to 3 years, some of which we had written before he died, not because we'd planned to write a book about when he died,
no,
but because when he'd gone through some of his worst illnesses, like his brain tumour, he was in a coma for some of that time, and I recorded what was happening so that when he came to and was awake, he would say, where have I been, what's happening? And I'd say, oh, Dad, this has happened and this has happened. And I would write down the events as they happened. So we used some of that in the book. So, the book took years, really.
Yeah.
But I think it was well worth it, A, for the journey of the grieving.
Yeah.
But we did continue after. We had a few really good ones after we'd completed and given the book in. It hadn't yet been published. But we did continue to have some good visitations and so on. And we did record them, but we didn't feel that there was sort of enough to write another book, for example. But we thought it would be useful that, should we do an update or a magazine article on that, we could update readers that way. So it was good, really good.
Brilliant. So, and what have you got thinking coming up in the future apart from this other project book-wise that you're doing?
Well, as I say, we've got the novel, which we're working on, and that is actually a spiritual novel. It's a bit of romance, but it has a spiritual twist because we've got twin brother and sister who are in their 20s, but very sadly the brother dies. The sister is devastated.
Yeah.
And he sort of died before his time. It was a bit of a cosmic accident, and there were things he should have done in his lifetime to get his sister on her right path. And so he's allowed to come back more so and help direct her and set coincidences up, let's say. He's not allowed to interfere or influence her, but he can sort of set up coincidences, and then if she should choose to follow them, then all well and good. And so we've had great fun with that, and we're still working on it, and I'm hoping that we can get that finished if we can get some time together, because I think that would be very good.
Yeah.
And then ongoing, carry on with my magazine articles, and just working with the college, that carries on, and see where it all takes me, really.
Well, we wish you all the best of luck anyway.
Thank you very much.
Please let us know if there's any events coming up. We can always advertise them on Paranormal Events for you, which we do every week, and keep us posted, and we can let everybody know.
Will do. Will do. Well, lovely to talk to you.
And you, my love. Take care.
And you.
All right.
Now.
Good night.
Bye.
Well, that was Madeline.
Good night.
And she was very nice, wasn't she? So I'm just putting this on there for Debs. So yeah, I've got a bit of a problem with my studio at the moment. So I seem to have lost the backdoor chat. Last thing I've got on there is leave Philip alone, Nigel. And that was ages ago from what's the name? It just seems to have gone on me for some reason. But at least I'm getting it in the front door. So that's why I've been typing in there. I just hope I don't lose a live stream altogether, to be honest with you. But if it does, bear with me and I'll just refresh it and come back to you. So, but that was quite an interesting conversation. We learned a bit more about chakras and auras and stuff like that. And as I say, I put Madeline Richards' website on there, which is madelinerichardson.co.uk. You can find out all about her and her sister and everything else that she does down there in Cornwall. So yeah, very nice, very interesting. Okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to do the paranormal events for you now.
Before you just shoot off there,
yeah, that's fine.
I have a little thing I don't know if anybody else has heard. but I've just discovered James Herbert, who did the crinkly bottom thing that we was advertising a while back.
Oh, yeah?
He actually died this morning in his sleep.
Oh, my God, you're joking.
Yes, he was 69.
Oh, my God. I don't believe that. Well, I do believe it because she told me,
It
but...
was in the I've got it in the Mirror News.
Wow. That was... I
I-
never knew that. He wrote so many books. The Haunted.
He did some classic horrors.
Are we sure it's not another hoax?
No, it's actually in the paper.
On the BBC News as well.
Yes, some classic horrors. The Rats. He
Wow.
did Survivor, Fluke, Haunted, and his book Ash that was rumoured to have members of the royal family caricatured in it. It was actually released last week.
Oh my God. So, published 23 novels in more than 30 languages, selling 54 million copies worldwide. And his latest book Ash was published last week.
The Fog as well, apparently.
Wow.
That JW just put up.
Oh my God. Yeah, he did The Fog as well. So, oh my God. Well, that's a shame.
Yeah, I arranged to put it on Facebook. Saying rest in peace, and I thought, hang on a minute, is it another hoax?
Yeah.
So I went and had a look, and it's actually on the news.
Yeah, but oh well, we wish all his family the best and sorry for their loss. So
But at least he went a nice way.
yes.
He died peacefully in his sleep.
Well, talking about dying in the sleep and stuff, after we've come back after the paranormal events, we're going to be talking to Carla about Carla Wills-Brandon about departing visions of the dying. Quite a few people say that they've seen relatives before they die. Beautiful places, it says here. In all cultures, people who are dying start talking to loved ones who have already died in the days before they die. Sometimes they say that they can see beautiful places in the spirit world and hear beautiful music. Those deathbed visions were rarely mentioned in the scientific literature until the late 1920s, when they were studied by Sir William Barrett, a professor of physics at the Royal College of Science in Dublin. So we'll be talking to her in a moment. Just want to remind everyone that although you have the right to reply to whatever's being spoken about on the talk show tonight and any other night, please remember we will not tolerate any profanity or disrespectful behaviour. Please remember to be respectful to our guests and listeners and people in the chat room as well. So okay, so as I say, we're just going to give you the paranormal events for you, and then obviously talk among ourselves for a bit because we've still got 15 minutes or so, and I believe she's just not long come home, so she's a little bit rushed. Okay, so we'll speak to you in a moment. So I'll leave you with these. Fed up of wading through the activities and events that other advertisers include? Find just what you're looking for at paranormaleventsforyou.com, your one-stop paranormal directory.
On the 22nd of the 3rd, there's a psychic night at the Forest Glade Football Club in Billericay. On the 23rd of the 3rd, DI Paranormal UK are going to Morecambe Winter Gardens in Morecambe. Also on the 23rd, Spirit Watch Ghost Hunting Experience are off to Pendle Hill in Sabden. On the 31st of March, you can go down to Burton-on-Trent for the Burton Psychic Ghost Walks. After April now, and on the 3rd, the weekly Celestial Meditation and Enlightenment Group are meeting at the Friends Meeting House in Settle. On the weekend of the 13th and 14th, there's the MBS, that's Mind, Body and Spirit Show at the Monastery in Gorton. And on the 19th, there's a monthly psychic one-to-one readings now available in the Manchester area with medium Neil Munley plus tarot and psychometry readings with intuitive clairvoyant Suzanne Lilly. And on the 20th of April, UK Shadow Seekers are going to the Masonic Hall in Liverpool.
So check out the one-stop paranormal directory for more investigations and events available now. ParanormalEventsForYou.com also offers banner advertising for only £10 per year. See our website for more details. ParanormalEventsForYou.com, your one-stop paranormal directory. Yeah, well, we're back. Just make sure the mic's up loud enough for everyone to hear us. I don't know what's up with the studio, but sorry, no one here right now. If you sound interesting and can form a thought, please leave a message. Pass it in. Give me a minute. Right. Okay. Good evening, Mr. John Savage. I don't know. Right. One thing I do want to mention, as I said, this Derby White Light event, Mind, Body and Spirit event this weekend. On the eve, let me just tell you what it's gone here. Right, it's on the 23rd and 24th of March. Okay. It's our second year at the Roundhouse in Derby.
So it's a third, actually.
I thought it was a third as well. Yeah, I think it is the third. I think they've got that a bit confusing. This is a fantastic venue for our most popular MBS event. Visitors and exhibitors love the feel of the Roundhouse, which we do, and it provides the most perfect setting. The room for over 80 exhibitors. This venue is perfect for our biggest event. The exhibition, talk rooms, toilets and cafes are all on one level and easily accessible for all. The Roundhouse provides the food over the weekend from their well-equipped kitchen, and they produce fantastic food, which includes curries, jacket potatoes, breakfast cobs, and even a full dinner on a Sunday for around £4.
Sunday roast.
Sounds good to me. There is also a shop that is open all weekend, which sells drinks, sandwiches, snacks, and fantastic desserts. We enjoy our weekend at the Roundhouse, and we hope that this event will continue to grow. It's situated right next door to Derby train station, for anyone who don't know, and has fantastic transport links from Derby city centre. So we'll be staying in Derby this weekend. And on Saturday evening, you can join have an evening of mediumship with Barbara Mickle, John Free, and Flavia Kate Peters. On the night, is anybody out there? Mediumship experience is one not to be missed. So that's what's happening after the MBS on Saturday night. So if you want to find out about that, tickets are available to buy during Saturday at the Mind, Body and Spirit event, and on the door from 7 p.m. So
and it's right next to the station.
And it is right next to the station, is what I just said.
So easy to do. And hopefully Derby are not playing at home.
Hopefully Derby are not playing at home. Are they?
Well, if they tend to shut the city centre down so no buses run.
That's true. So we'll have to check to make sure that they're not playing at home. So I'm surprised you're not watching football tonight.
No.
Oh, that's good.
It's International Week this week.
It only has 15 minutes onto our journey, so could pop in. Why not, Joe? Come in and see us. And like I say, if you're coming on Sunday, 4 o'clock, we're doing our demonstration, which is a little bit like a you know what.
I doubt they'll be there that long because they're coming back from an invest.
Oh, are they?
But they will be able to get us. They will be able to get a Sunday lunch.
Oh yeah, they would be able to. So yes. So if they fancy. But are you at Margam Castle this weekend, Joe? Is that where you said you were going? You'll enjoy it there if you are. Yes. Oh, it's lovely. And you know what I like about Margam Castle? When you drive up through the car park and you go up the hill, and as you go up you can see the trees on the left, and then all of a sudden the trees disappears and there it stands in all its glory.
It's a beautiful sight, isn't it?
Just make sure when you drive up you look out from the left as you go up the hill. It's great when it just appears from beyond the trees.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
So some of our people had a bit of a fright the first time we went, because they had some enactment people there.
Oh yeah.
And they walked out the front door to actually to have a cigarette and walked straight into a couple of American Marines.
Yeah. Yeah, they really thought it was a ghost. So, because there was quite a few there, weren't there? There was
They were
people
good.
dressed up as Marines and World War II people.
They set everything up on a Saturday for the Sunday show, didn't they?
Yeah, and they camped out overnight and what have you. The only trouble is, you'll have to let me know, but when we were there last, there was you're not got a lot of the place, unfortunately. You know, that's the only thing, isn't it? What you see is not everything you've got.
Yeah,
but-
well, when they had the big fire, I think it was '96. They haven't got all the floors in that back.
No, this is it.
And all the furniture, carpets, curtains, everything got destroyed. So
Yeah.
they've managed to get one side of it open
Yeah, and then you've got the top floors.
and
haven't you?
top floors.
All I can say is beware of the bats. Isn't it?
Yes.
Beware of the bats.
Our Simon was a bit crafty with that one. On
Definitely.
his phone, he had a bat app,
No.
and he played it, and the bats came to him.
Yeah. So if you've got a bat app on your phone, don't let them use it because they will come to you. Okay. So, yes, definitely. But it's a lovely place. I'd love to go down again. We actually stayed at the Travel Lodge, didn't we, or Premier Inn or something?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
and right next door you've got the
Tay-Barns.
Tay-Barns right next door to it.
Yeah, it's a really nice place. As I say, when we went down there, we actually stayed for the weekend. So, you know, we made a weekend of it and did that. So it was really good. So, but yeah, if anyone's in the area during the weekend over in Derby, then please come along.
Or of
see us.
course, where Nigel is at the probe.
Yes.
I didn't quite catch where they was.
No, I didn't see where it was either.
I know
so.
it's at the YMCA, but I didn't see where.
Yes.
So if you could let us know, Nigel or Helen.
And if you heard the paranormal events for you, you would even hear that Nigel has lived in St Anne's Green. They said you would even know that Nigel has a weekly, isn't it? Starting up a weekly meditation thing that's on my KTPF. Don't mind me, I'm losing it. Don't mind me. I am tired, I must admit.
Oh dear.
As I said on my Facebook, I've got to stop having these mini strokes. But yes, there was something there that you put on there, didn't you, for Nigel?
I did. He's having a weekly celestial meditation and enlightenment group at the Friends Meeting House in Settle.
Yes, and you can find out more about that on Paranormal Events for You. And you can find out more about that from the links there too. So, you need sleep. Yes, I do need sleep, Doc. I really do. I probably look like deaf warmed up at the moment. But talking about deaf warmed up.
I could have sworn Ghost Rider was going because he didn't feel well. Or did I just read something wrong?
It is John's wife here now.
Well,
So he's gone.
And Vicky's come on.
She's come back.
Aha, I see.
So, right. So we'll see whether the young lady is available. A few minutes early, I must admit. So.
Go for it.
I can't call you dumb.
No,
Sorry.
You mean you can't call her? Who can't you call? What, on the phone? No chance.
Sorry, I can't call in America.
Not on the phone. It's got to be Skype.
If that's the case, unfortunately. Why what? I can't call her in America. It's a 409 number.
It cost a fortune.
It would cost a fortune. Right, let's give it a go. See what happens.
Yeah, she should be able to get us on there.
Yeah. Hopefully you can hear her. Hello, Carla.
Hello?
Hello, Carla.
Hello, how does that sound?
Yeah, that's fine. Is that okay?
That's going to be better than the computer.
Coming through
Okay.
Okay, does it sound alright?
Yeah, it sounds fine.
Okay.
Absolutely fine. I just uploaded Skype back on my phone real quick.
Oh, right, great. Okay, so Carla, we're going to be talking about the departing visions of the dying, correct?
Right?
So can you firstly tell us a bit about yourself?
Can I tell you about myself real quick?
Yes, please.
Okay. Are we already on air?
You are?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Well, welcome. Welcome to lovely Galveston Island, which is on the coast of Texas in the Gulf of Mexico.
Thank you.
where we're also known as Hurricane Alley. So when you see those big storms heading towards Texas, they're actually heading toward my house. So
Wow.
that's where I live. I'm originally from California. And my father played professional baseball. He played for the Boston Red Sox, so he traveled all over the place.
Wow.
And I moved here to be closer to my husband's parents. And so I've lived here since 1980. My husband is a licensed clinical psychologist, and he initially thought that all of this woo-woo stuff, departed visions, was a bunch of bunk until he had some experiences of his own. You know, he's a Texas man, meat and potatoes. Even though his parents were Europeans, he's still, that Texas mentality kind of eked into him. So,
Yeah.
but I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And my mother, back in California, and my parents, after the baseball career sort of fizzled, my mother was your basic trophy wife. A lot of these athletes in the United States have beautiful women on their arm, and my mother was one of those. She was a true trophy wife. She was gorgeous. She looked like Marilyn Monroe. But once the baseball career ended, they divorced, and shortly after that, she was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 33.
Right.
And so, yeah, she was so young, so beautiful and so young. And she passed at the age of 38. Right before her passing, I was at a rock concert with my girlfriends, Sly and the Family Stone, very popular back in the day.
Yeah.
And at that time, Sly was always late because he liked to do a lot of drugs, so he never could show up on time. And so, for some odd reason, I felt very ill, and I got up and I found an ambulance. There was an ambulance on board, and I walked over to the ambulance and I crawled into the back of the ambulance and went to sleep. And when I woke up and returned home, at the exact moment I had crawled into the ambulance at the rock concert, my mother was being loaded up into an ambulance and taken away to the hospital. Now, at the time, I didn't know what to make of that because I was so very young. I was 15 years old. And when I turned 16, that's when she actually passed. And the moment she passed, she was in a hospital. It was 5 in the morning, and I was at home, and I woke up at 5 in the morning, and I knew intuitively that she had moved on. And I went downstairs and I waited for a phone call. Now, at the same time, unbeknownst to me, 2 very dear family friends in different locations also woke up at the exact moment of her passing. Last year, I found out that my cousin and her mother, my great aunt, had also awoken at the moment of my mother's passing, and they too knew she had moved on. So 5 of us, at the moment of my mother's passing, awoke in very different locations and knew that my mother had moved on from this life to the next. Now, of course, being only 16 and having been raised in a fairly death-phobic society where nobody talked about such things. Now, my grandfather, I will say, he was the type of individual who would get himself a nice big glass of wine, and he'd go sit in the backyard and he'd wait for UFOs to come flying over.
Yeah.
That was kind of a family secret, but he was very into UFOlogy. And after my mom passed away, I found a lot of his books under her bed about UFOs. But outside of that, nobody ever talked about paranormal activity or spirituality. And so for me, I didn't know what to do with that information. I tried bringing it up a couple of times to a couple of family members, and they would say the typical things like, your mother's in a better place. Don't worry about it. Everything's okay. Well, everything wasn't okay because I had lost my mother at a very young age, and I had 2 sisters who were eventually farmed out to foster homes, and I ended up living with my grandparents and got into some pretty dysfunctional behavior myself. And I think that most people who get into the field of mental health usually do so because, number one, they want to save the world, but primarily they want to figure out what the heck is wrong with them. So part of me wanted to figure out, why was I such a mess? And why was I into all this dysfunctional behavior? And why couldn't I get over the loss of my mother? And a number of other things too. So I did very well in school. I was on a scholarship, and then I got into graduate school, and that's where I met my husband. And of course, he saw me as a project because I was such a mess. As he says, he likes to say, I was more entertaining in my dysfunction than Monday night television. So we married, and eventually I got my own act together, and I got involved in what was called in the United States the recovery movement. And as a matter of fact, I used to come over to the UK probably once a year, and what I would do is I would do workshops on addiction and trauma. And I did these in London, and even did something in Wales. So that was what I was doing. I did that for a number of years, and as I got more into working with trauma, of course, trauma involves death and dying. And so what I started to hear from the people I worked with, I started to hear accounts similar to mine, accounts involving people waking up in the middle of the night, knowing a loved one had passed on, waiting for the phone to ring. The phone rings, and they receive information. Some of them talked about even seeing the apparition at the end of their bed. They would see their loved one who was supposed to be in the hospital standing at the foot of the bed, saying goodbye to them, saying, I love you, I care about you. And then 5 minutes, the phone would ring. Other individuals would talk about seeing orbs. They would see these brilliant balls of light whizzing around the room and wonder what that was about. And then they would receive a phone call hearing that a loved one had moved on. So I collected these things, and I thought to myself, isn't this odd? This is real similar to what I encountered. And so I would go to my peers and my psychology, mental health peers, and I would try to talk to them about this. And they would say, oh my goodness, you can't talk about that. You're supposed to be this expert in trauma, and you've written all of these books on trauma, and you're on television, and you're on the radio talking about trauma. You're going to discredit yourself if you talk about this. And so I thought, well, holy cow, I guess I just have to keep my mouth shut. Well, I happened to be in London, and I was doing a workshop, and it was when the IRA was bombing the tube lines, or there was concerns about the tube lines being blown up. And what would happen is you couldn't get on the tube, and everybody had to get off. And so I was supposed to be traveling across town to a hospital to do some work for a workshop. And of course, there you go again, tube line is shut down. And so I thought, well, to heck with that. And so I was up on the street, and I found one of those bookstores that you guys have that go, you walk down the stairs, and there it is. And it was one of these old used bookstores, and this was back in the early 90s. And so I went in there and was just looking around, and I saw this little green book, and it was written by a guy named Sir William Barrett. And Sir William Barrett was a physicist, a renowned physicist. And this was in middle 1800s, early 1900s. And he was married to a gynecological surgeon and that was very unusual back then for women to be surgeons. And because she was a surgeon dealing with women who were birthing children, back then women also died during childbirth. And so they reported having experiences involving the dying being greeted by deceased relatives and loved ones who had come to escort them to the other side. Well, in my collecting of accounts that were similar to what I had personally experienced as a survivor of someone who had passed on, I had also collected some of these accounts where, let's say that a husband is getting ready to pass. This is one of my favorite accounts, and I have it in my latest book. My husband is getting ready to pass, and he has had a serious illness for a number of years. And suddenly, the nursing staff becomes very upset because he's waving his hands around. And so they contact his wife, and his wife comes to the hospital to find out what on earth is going on. And the staff says, "We don't know what's going on. He seems very agitated and very upset." And she goes into his room and she watches him and she says, "Oh, he's not agitated. He's using sign language." And they
Hmm.
go, "Sign language?" And she says, "Yes, both of his parents were deaf and they're deceased. And so he is talking to them using sign language." That's a
Ah,
very extreme form of a departing vision.
yeah,
But I had collected a number of these accounts. And when I read through Barrett's book, I found that they too had oodles and oodles of these experiences documented, and that this was basically one of the first collections of accounts. So what I did is I thought, there might be something to this. So I started digging around and I found some historical Judaic uh, accounts of departing visions where the students of a teacher of a famous rabbi would be standing around the bed,
yeah.
and they would see his soul leave the body. They would see a blue light leave the body as death drew near. Or they would hear their teacher talk about how his teacher had come to take him to the other side. So my cat is sitting on my computer. I just had to move him there.
I have one that does exactly the same.
So I thought, wow, this is fascinating. These accounts go way back. So what I did is I pulled out the accounts that I had collected and
Mm.
I reviewed them and made a decision to put together the first book. And the first book was called One Last Hug Before I Go: The Mystery and Meaning of Deathbed Visions.
Mm.
And in that book, I shared an account that involved something that happened within our family. And along with that, I included the accounts that I had collected from a number of my clients. And in releasing that book, I received back all sorts of accounts I got them from South Africa, Israel, China, Japan, of course, Wales, Scotland, England, Holland, across the United States,
Mm.
Canada. I mean, just from everywhere. I received a flood of accounts from people who didn't know what the New Age movement was, who had never picked up a paranormal magazine or listened to a paranormal radio or television show. Everyday gals and guys who had never shared these accounts with anybody, and they were eager to have someone listen to them. And in listening and looking, I thought to myself, why why aren't we allowed to talk about death and dying in a healthy way? Why do we live in such a death phobic society? And that really was the beginning of this journey.
Bloody hell. Well, obviously you've just basically explained what a departing vision is, but do you think that maybe it is part of the oxygen deprivation, or or would you say it was the neurons in the brain firing up to remember past events?
Well, for the living, those who survive, when living people are having these experiences and they themselves
Yeah,
don't move on, that that makes us question the situation.
right.
So there are accounts where somebody is getting ready to pass and they are seeing somebody standing in the doorway of the hospital.
Right.
Not only are they seeing someone standing in the doorway of the hospital who is an apparition, but also the person sitting by the bedside is seeing that same vision. So
Mm.
when you have the living and the person who is dying seeing the same thing, it's hard to say it has to do with oxygen deprivation of the brain. But that is what most naysayers and skeptics, they like to pull that one up in two
Yeah.
seconds. Now, a big study was done
Uh huh.
by a friend of mine and his colleague. Now, his colleague's name was Carlos Osis, and his name is Erlinger Haraldson. And these were two psychologists from Iceland. And the individual who edited their first book is actually my literary agent, John White. So isn't that interesting? And I didn't know this. I didn't know that my agent had edited their book until after he had been my agent for several years. There are no coincidences. Well, anyway, what Carlos did, Osis, he took a look at Barrett's study, Sir William Barrett and his wife's study, their collection in that little green book. And he said, wow, I wonder if there's something to this.
Yeah.
And so he and Erlinger, what they did is they put together, after a period of time and some pilot studies, the two of them put together a huge questionnaire. And that questionnaire took a look at departing or deathbed visions. What they termed departing vision or deathbed vision, they called it a hallucination because that would make it more digestible for the medical community that they were going to survey.
Yeah.
Now, they didn't just send this out to 100 people or 200 people. What they did is they sent this questionnaire out to thousands upon thousands of doctors and nurses. And they didn't just do this in the United States, but they also did it in India. So they had this huge sample. And what they found were some very interesting things. They discovered that atheists have departing visions, and so do very religious people have departing visions.
Yeah.
They discovered that illness, the type of illness, did not determine what the departing vision would look like. They discovered that medication or no medication didn't determine what the departing vision looked like. They determined that the dying brain was not a factor in this, that neurons, the firing of neurons couldn't explain this.
Yeah.
And let me explain something as a clinician, because I am in a unique position. I work with some severely mentally ill people. I work with people who are addicted to drugs and alcohol, who suffer from bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, you name it, I've seen it.
Yeah.
10 people come to my office, 10 different people, and they are all suffering from hallucinations. What I'm going to hear, the hallucinations are going to be different from person to person. They will not be the same. The hallucinations will be dependent on what is going on with that individual in particular, which makes my job very dicey, because when working with someone like that, my job is to step into that hallucination in order to assist the person in coming out of the hallucination. So I'm going to be stepping in. It's kind of like stepping into 10 different past lives, if you want to look at it realistically. If 10 people come to me sharing that they have experienced a departing vision, there are going to be some real similarities there. Number one, the visions are always going to be deceased relatives and friends. It's not going to be the mailman. It's not going to be the next door neighbor. It's not going to be live individuals. It's not going to be a live relative. It's not going to be somebody that they work with. It's going to be a deceased relative or loved one.
Right.
Maybe they will discuss talking about seeing angels or Buddha or Jesus. But for the most part, I'd say probably 85% of the time, that's what they're going to share.
Right.
Number two, the next thing is that what the purpose of the visitation or the vision will be to escort them to the next realm of existence. Across the number three, people who have these experiences, for the most part, even if they feel a little frightened at the beginning of the experience, they if they are death phobic, scared of dying, afraid of leaving, they will have calmed down toward the end of the experience, and they will be ready to move on to the next dimension, to the next realm of existence. So that's what I'm going to hear about. For people who survive, who are the survivors at the bedside,
Yeah.
they too will understand, even if they can't see these visitors, they will see that their loved one is calming down. They become an easier patient to work with if it is a healthcare professional witnessing this. They will notice that their loved one is able to have a conversation with them while at the same time speak with these invisible visitors who are in the room. They will also notice that there was one individual who became very upset because she could see her deceased relative while at the same time carry on a conversation with her family who was going to survive her. And she became upset with the surviving family because more deceased relatives were showing up in the room, and she was expecting the surviving relatives to put together a party. So she was mad because they weren't doing that. And I've had accounts like that on several occasions. So there's real consistency with the departing vision.
Right.
We have,
sorry, carry on.
As compared to a true hallucination, or when there is a dying brain,
Yeah.
and there are hallucinations, those aren't consistent from person to person.
Right. We do have a couple of remarks in the chat room, and I have a couple of scenarios that I want to tell you about, which are personal to us. But just to let you know what's being said in the chat room while you've been talking, Aggie said, every time someone dies in my family, there's a new baby. Charlotte says, in the hospital he worked at as a male nurse, many old people about to die would describe seeing a black dog at the foot of their bed. There was also, let me see where else. Reiki Dev said, my grandma would see her granddad when she was about to pass over, as well as other dead relatives. And just the personal ones I wanted to mention was Steve, my husband. His great nan. As far as I know, she'd never been to Wales, had she? No. She'd never been to Wales.
No, she'd never been.
I don't know whether you've actually heard years ago about the children of Aberfan that died when the
a slag heap collapsed on top of the school.
A slag heap crashed down onto a school. But when she died, she actually said she could hear the children calling her, or when she was dying, she said she could hear the children calling her, and there was no relatives as part of that. Which was quite interesting. And myself, I did flatline on an operating table, and I remember being told to go back. Do you think these visions sometimes send us back, or do you think it's actually the doctors doing that? So there's a couple for you to think about.
Well, number one, I'll start backwards with you. You had what was called a near-death experience, which is different. A near-death experience is where somebody comes close to death, but they don't cross over, they come back.
Right.
And so the thought is that we have an oversoul, a guide. Some people like to call it God. And so we go to the other side, but it's not our time yet because we have more things to do here in this realm. And so we're sent back. With your husband, did his great nan have any connection with these children? Was she a teacher? Was she?
No, no connection at all. The closest thing she came to being a teacher is bringing up her own 13 children.
Yeah, but nothing to do with Wales. She never went to Wales.
No, she didn't. She didn't know any of them or any of their relatives at all.
The only thing that I can think of is that she had a affinity for children.
Yeah.
And so the children were there for her for whatever reason, or maybe she had some sort of, when 9/11 happened here, there were lots and lots of people here in the States who didn't know people who died in the Twin Towers, but they still had an affinity for those people. So if she had an affinity for those children, or an emotional connection herself with those children, that could be a possibility.
Yeah.
The black dog, I have heard that over and over and over again.
Uh-huh.
And some people say that they are frightened by that. Other
Yeah.
people say it's just a curiosity. And other people are actually comforted by that.
Mm.
I don't know what to say about that, but I will validate for your listener
Yeah.
that is something that is a reality. The woman who talked about her grandmother saw her grandfather,
Yeah, and other people.
and other people.
Other relatives, yeah. Deceased relatives.
Yes. There is a wonderful account that came out of Pennsylvania last year, and it involved a couple who had been married for a really, really long time, and they were very devoted to each other, and they had a number of children, and he had become very, very sick, and she could no longer care for him, so he was moved to a facility.
Mm-hmm.
And while he was at that facility, she suddenly became very ill, and she was moved across town to a hospital. Well, she passed away in the hospital, and the family made a decision not to let him know about her passing. But of course, he eventually did find out about her passing. And he then suddenly became very ill and was ready to move on. And he began to say to her, "Pull me up,
Uh-huh.
pull me up and take me with you, pull me up." And so she was there for him to take him to the other side. So, I'll tell you an account involving my mother. My mother-in-law lost her mother in Auschwitz in the concentration camp. And her father was in Siberia, and her brother and sister were in Auschwitz. And she was in the States. And it was a wound for her that never healed. And we had moved my in-laws to the island to be close to us. And when the time came, first my father-in-law passed, and then my mother-in-law, when it was time for her to pass, my father-in-law came to her and she started talking to Malpa, and Malpa in Yiddish means monkey. And so we had to have her sister come to the island to translate, because the dying will often speak in the language of their youth as death draws near. And so she was talking in Polish, and none of us could speak Polish. And so she was arguing with my father-in-law, and she was saying, "No, I'm not coming. I'm not ready. What is going on here? I don't understand this." No. She argued with him all day long. Well, we have a tendency to die also the way we live, and she was very controlling. And so we went to her and we said, "It's okay. You can move on. Go with Pop. It'll be fine." The next day we came back and we found her still arguing. Well, suddenly she became very calm, and she started talking to her mother, who had passed in Auschwitz, and she was in tears. But then we saw the calmness come over her, and we said to her, "You can go with your mother, go with Pop." And so she moved on. So at the moment of her passing, she was still growing, learning, and healing. So sometimes relatives will come to us. One woman became very upset because she did not want her husband to come and get her. She had a lot of unfinished business with him. She expected her son to come and get her, by God. And why was he there? And why was he coming to get her? Well, at the moment of her passing, they had unfinished business. So, sometimes it can be a room. It can be a very crowded room. I had the experience of seeing all of my relatives in spirit form at once at a crisis moment in my life. I did not see them in their physical bodies. I saw them they were in the shapes of orbs and vectors of light, and they touched me and they went through me, and there was a drop in temperature when it happened, and it was a very loving experience, and that's what I needed at that moment.
Yeah.
So some people it's just one person who comes to get them. Other people, it's an entire crowd. For some people, it's the woman in white. I've heard that also. Maybe some of your listeners have heard those experiences.
Uh-huh.
For others, it's the big black dog. For your husband's Nan, it was the children who came.
Uh-huh.
So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was a Swiss psychiatrist who wrote the first book in the field of mental health that had to do with death and dying. And she had an entire chapter that was full of departing visions and near-death experiences, and she would put the chapter in the book and then she would take it out for fear that she wouldn't be taken seriously. She had a patient come to her after the patient passed, and the patient manifested in physical form and thanked her for being there for her. And so she had that in this chapter, and then of course she had sat at the bedside of the dying, and she had listened to children talk about deceased relatives and loved ones coming to get them. And then, of course, near-death experiences, and eventually she had 2 near-death experiences herself. But as I said, in her first of many, many books, she did not put any of this in the first book.
No.
On down the line, she got to a place where she could care less what anybody thought.
Uh-huh. Well,
And
just to go back on what you said, Deb said that when her grandma kept saying that when you said about going up, she said my grandma kept saying that up, and pointing to the ceiling, calling out the names. So she obviously must have seen them as they were calling for her.
well, on the ceiling too, and that's I was very confused by that for many, many years, because my grandmother had what was called the departing vision stare, where both her children, my mother and her son, had passed before her, and so she was not able to communicate, but her gaze was at the ceiling, and she would look at us and then she would look at the ceiling. A lawyer came to me once, and this is a guy who would never want his name used publicly, God forbid. And he talked about how his father, who was also a lawyer, at the moment of his passing, he had been basically in a coma. He came to, he sat up, raised his hands, looked to the ceiling and said, take me with you. So, and I have lots and lots of accounts of the dying looking at the ceiling and naming people and calling out to them and asking for them, please take me with you. So for a long time, these experiences were viewed as hallucinations. They would over-medicate people. They would say that it was just the dying brain. But the consistency is unreal. It's absolutely unreal. And so it can't be blown off. And as I was saying, this is what Kubler-Ross and her research also found out, is that the people who we need to see, who need to be there for us, will come for us. The people who will bring us comfort or who will help us resolve hurts in this life will come for us. And she said, what did she say? She was really, really sick, and she loved smoking cigarettes, and her death was basically a byproduct of her smoking. And she said, damn the skeptics, they will find out when their time comes.
You still there? Hello? Oh, have we lost her?
We seem to have lost her.
Hello? Are you still there, Carla?
She was there a minute ago.
She seems to have dropped off.
Hello?
Hello, are you there?
Hear my music?
Yeah, sorry, you seemed to drop off then. So
that was my Alfred Hitchcock music came on because my son was calling me. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Oh no, that's fine. I didn't hear the music. It just seemed to go quite quiet. That was all.
You didn't hear the music? It's fabulous.
No, I'm sorry. So if this is a soul that's actually going, what is a soul? Is it our consciousness? And if so, when it leaves our body, where do you think it goes?
Well, I just had a conversation about this with actually my cousin. My cousin suffered from severe PTSD. He was a military man.
Yeah.
And he came back from Europe. I took one look at him and I said, I'm going to do an evaluation on you. You have no business going back to Baghdad. And I did an evaluation on him, and he was off the charts. He really was a wreck. Well, about 5 months ago, his wife became very, very ill. And during her passing, he had what is called an empathetic departing vision. Remember at the beginning of our discussion when I was talking about going into the ambulance at the exact moment my mother was being put into an ambulance? We can have what is called an empathetic departing vision, where we experience what a dying loved one is experiencing. So I can be in the States, and let's say I have relatives in England actually, and let's say that one of the cousins is having a heart attack, and I myself here in the States can suddenly feel tightness in my chest and know that something is not right. What I typically do if somebody that I'm close to is getting ready to pass is I will be very weepy for no reason.
Yeah.
But we have these empathetic experiences. Well, he had an empathetic departing vision with his wife. And what happened was, as she was beginning to pass, she saw all of her deceased relatives who had come for her. And he was laying with her, and he too saw all the deceased relatives. And then she saw a bright light, and then he saw a light, but his light wasn't as bright because it wasn't time for him to go. And he had had a near-death experience previous to this where he came close to dying, and he knew what that bright, bright light looked like. So I think what happens, and that was we were talking about that just before I came on the air with you. Actually, he's written a book about that. But I think that what happens is that so many people believe that the mind and the brain is responsible for consciousness. Well, research is showing us that consciousness is not a byproduct of the mind. That basically consciousness is something that can be non-local. With remote viewing, and I wouldn't be surprised if you haven't had folks on your show talk about remote viewing. Remote viewers, what they can do is they can be in one place. I mean, the U.S. government used remote viewers for years. And a remote viewer can go to another location with their consciousness and see what's going on. And then come back after going to the target, and they can come back and report what's going on. Well, I think that what happens when we pass is that part of us that is our consciousness, that is basically here and at the whim of our mind, if you want to say, is released, and that is the part of us that moves on to the next reality. Now, that next reality, there's a lot of discussion about that right now because people who have had near-death experiences like yourself, they go to the other side and something tells them to go back, either a guide or a light or something. Now, one of the interesting things that my cousin was sharing with me, he was talking to me, and this was not a guy who knew he was the most unspiritual person before her passing. He has had what are called after-death communications with her. And he was talking about having an after-death communication with her where she told him where she was and what she was doing on the other side. And it was consistent with what the mystics have reported and with what other people who have had after-death communications have reported. I had an after-death communication where I saw a long line of people trying to get into a great big giant building. And these were deceased people. And it was a joyous occasion. There's nothing frightening about it. And I just popped in to get some information. And so, and other people have talked about buildings and learning, and the journey continues. And that seems to be the theme.
Yeah.
When we pass and go to the other side, we don't just go sit on some cloud with a harp. What we do is we continue to evolve spiritually. And at some times there is a decision to come back, to reincarnate. Some souls, what they do is their job is to assist from the afterlife, to assist individuals here or in other dimensions. But I really do think that is just the tip of the iceberg. I think there's so much we don't know.
Yeah.
And there are groups of us and programs like yours that are finally bringing to light, hey, look, why are we sitting around being so afraid of death and dying? Why aren't we taking a look at this?
Yeah.
This can't be all there is. Good grief. There's got to be more to this. And we're listening to the people who have had these experiences, like yourself and your husband. And we're discovering that not all of these people, they're not all wrong, are they? So you have tons and tons of people who have had near-death experiences. And the reports are almost identical.
Yeah.
Lots of people. My husband had a near-death experience. He went to a very colorful place. He was talking to a lot of deceased people. He was looking for people he knew, and he was given some information that he brought back here. It absolutely changed his life, and he's no longer Mr. Texas Meat and Potatoes Man, he is Mr. Texas Meat and Potatoes Man. Now he's, his journey, his own personal journey has
Yeah.
changed, and he even announced to me that when he is done with his mission, he will move on. And I looked at him and said, "Mission? What are you talking?" He had never used the word mission before.
Wow.
And he's not a seriously religious man either.
No.
So then you have people who have death uh, death communications, where they have dreams of being visited by deceased relatives,
Yeah.
loved ones, where they have full blown, they're wide awake like I was, and they have a visitation.
Yeah.
And they're completely sober when they have these experiences. And then there is the departing vision, where people who survive are at the bedside and they see something leaving the body. My husband saw something leave his father's body.
Wow.
I have accounts. I have a couple of chapters in the latest book and in the last book, A Glimpse of Heaven, and then the recent book, Heavenly Hugs, about people actually seeing something, a mist, a vapor, a cloud, leaving the physical body at the moment of passing. And then, of course, there are those experiences where they have the dreams, where they have a relative come at the moment of a passing, and that wakes them up, or they're awake and they see a relative standing at the foot of the bed saying goodbye, I love you. And then, of course, there's precognition. There were so many people who knew. They knew. They made reports about 9/11. There's a psychic in England called Chris Robinson, and he's called the Dream Detective. And he tried to warn everybody about 9/11, and nobody would listen to him. Right after 9/11, there was a plane crashed in Queens, right out in the New York area. I had a dream about that. And the dream was very detailed. And when I woke up and turned on the television, there it was being played out. A man in Canada had the exact same dream that I had.
Wow.
A woman in the States had a dream very similar to what Chris experienced about 9/11. So not all of us can be wrong about these things. So most definitely, I think that our consciousness moves on. We continue to evolve. Um, Physical death isn't the end. It's just we just transition to something else.
This is it. Well, there's been a few comments in the chat room. Just before we do, I just wondered if there's a period of time that these people come. Steve's nan, not his great nan, but his nan, saw her son who had passed away a few years before, a couple of years before. But before she passed, she saw him about a week before she had an aneurysm. Didn't even know there was anything wrong, to be honest with you. She went to bed and to get a party dress ready for the next day for a Christmas party, and they found her sitting on the floor, unfortunately. Is this possible that they can come at any time leading up to a possible death?
Well, that's another unknown, because one man reported to me that he and his mother had lunch every Sunday. And one Sunday she said to him, in a year I'm going to be dead. And she was perfectly healthy. And he looked at her as if she had lost her mind. And a year later, she moved on. So people can have departing visions. I don't want to freak your audience out.
Oh, no.
But some people can have departing visions. They can have them months, weeks, days, hours, minutes before a passing.
Right. Okay. And Reiki Devs would like to know, is it possible for your soul or energy, whatever you would like to call it, to have left the body, but the physical body to still be alive for a short while, maybe days?
Well, what happens in other cultures, there is a belief that when we come close to passing, we have one foot in this life and one in the next.
Yeah.
And so if it's a fast death, of course, the soul is going to just bolt. If it is a long passing, if it's a passing that's taking some time, what happens is that the soul leaves the body and comes back, leaves the body and comes back. Now, there is also a belief that when we go to sleep, that our soul does this very thing. It comes and it leaves, and it comes and it leaves. So the belief that we have one foot in this life and one in the next is something that's very, very accepted in other cultures. In our culture, we don't, as I said before, we have real issues with death and dying. Uh, Physicians in our culture, in Western culture, and I'm talking Europe, UK, United States,
Uh-huh.
physicians will often try to deny that a passing is happening. When my father-in-law was passing, he was a physician, and I had to take the doctor by the arm and move him out of the room because he was talking about my father-in-law's upcoming physical death as if he wasn't in the room, as if he wasn't a physician. And my
Wow.
father-in-law knew it was his time to move on.
Yeah.
But I think physicians have a real hard time with death and dying. And hospice is becoming more medically oriented. It's like, I've had to move hospice people out of rooms of the dying because they have either become upset or they're talking over the family or they're not hearing or listening or so nurses are usually the best because nurses are the ones who sit and tend to those who are getting ready to move on. But with the medical community, they can oftentimes make it more difficult. You have a few doctors here and there, thank goodness. There are physicians like Jeffrey Long, Raymond Moody. I had a good friend named Barbara Romer who studied near-death experiences. She passed on. There's a guy in the UK, Peter Fenwick, who just did a great deal of work on not only near-death experiences but departing visions. He put together a questionnaire, and he uh, took this questionnaire to not only the UK, but he took it to Holland and to Ireland. So, thankfully are some people, more and more individuals are stepping up to the plate and saying, there's something going on here. But then we have the clergy. They can be incredibly difficult. You have the extreme version of clergy who will say that's the devil's work. Um, that's inappropriate. But if you look at traditional religion, all of the religions, most religions are based in uh, founders having either a near-death experience, an after-death communication, but some sort of afterlife contact.
Mm.
But clergy will fight tooth and nail and say things like, "Oh, well, that the dying brain," or "We'll just pray for that to go away." In one situation, there's a guy a physician who was a pediatrician who researched near-death experiences in children, and there was a child who was very close to dying, and so family was around this child praying and praying and praying that he would come back and he would get well, and their clergy person had a dream that the child came to him and said, "Will you please ask my family to quit praying for me? They need to let me go." And the clergy person went to the family and said, "I had this dream." And they stopped praying for him and he moved on. So, but those sorts of clergy persons are very, very few and far between. Some of the individuals who have reported near-death experiences who are clergy have taken their experience and molded it toward a scary religion. If you don't do X, Y, and Z, you won't go to heaven, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, there's my field, psychologists, marriage and family therapists, psychotherapists. We want to see everything as a mental illness. So when a client comes in and says, "I need to share this with you," well, for example, in my practice, I will have people who will come in and they'll have issues, and we'll talk about their issues and work through things, and then they will say something like, I have something I have never shared with anybody, and I want to share this with you. And I have all my teeth, and I have a full-time job, and I'm not crazy, and I'm not doing drugs. And then they'll share one of these experiences with me, and I may be the first person they talk to. So typically what happens when somebody has one of these experiences is if they're dying, like the gentleman who was dying, and he tried to tell his doctor about his departing vision, and the doctor ran out of the room, and the nurse came back in with medication, and he told me I will never talk to them again about any of my experiences. Those were his words. Or the family members who were told, your loved one is hallucinating, just ignore it, don't pay attention to it. In those situations, what happens is that experiencers shut down. They don't know where to go and who to talk to. And that's why shows like yours are so important, because your show gives people the opportunity to hear, oh yeah, somebody else is saying that there are other people who have seen that big black dog at the foot of the bed. Okay, so there really is something to that. Or, oh, yeah, so you don't really have to know the person that does show up to come take you to the other side. Like your husband's Nan, who was hearing the children. So, but just the validation can be so soothing for individuals.
Right. So basically, for those that have come in a bit late, somebody's been out for dinner, didn't bring us anything back. We're talking about departing visions of the dying. So Andy, seems you're late, and and we're talking to Carla Wills-Brandon in the Gulf of Mexico somewhere in America, North Carolina, wasn't it, Carla?
No, at Texas. I'm actually an hour east of Houston, Texas, on an island in the Gulf of Mexico.
Right. Okay. One of our listeners said that he was from not far from there. He used to live there as a child. Can't remember where he said it was. Feline's or something or other. Colleen or something.
Killeen, Texas. Yeah,
yes. He comes
that's
from
way
there.
far away from me.
Right. Anyway, as we were saying about these dying visions and everything, and the death phobic society, how can we change this? Is there a way of resolving the death and dying issue, and which could it teach us how to live life?
Well, I think the only way we can do it is to do what we're doing. I mean, I was in talking, I'm going to go back to my cousin since we were having such a conversation. He said that because he now talks openly about his near-death experiences and after death, his departing vision with his wife as she was passing, he was upset because he said he was being attacked a lot. Because to see this man, he's about 6'5". He looks like you'd look at him and go, yeah, military. And he doesn't look like the type of guy who would be talking about these sorts of topics. And he couldn't, and people, and he also worked, he was the foremost authority on the electrical engineering of the American helicopter. So, I mean, a real brain, a real scientifically minded individual. So for him to be talking about these sorts of things, it's taken all of his friends and some of the family off guard. You know, my family, they're used to me talking about this stuff. They're beyond it. But but that comes up a lot. People are afraid to talk because they're afraid of the ridicule. So for number one, they're afraid to talk because they have been ridiculed. They're afraid to talk because they don't know where to get validation. They're afraid to talk because they're afraid they will be ridiculed. So, and I have to own up and fess up that for many years I was afraid to publish on these topics because I was afraid of the ridicule I would receive.
Yeah.
And I don't know if age may have had something to do with it. I'm going to be 57 next month. I published my first book on this topic about, I guess 12 years ago. And so at first I did take a lot of heat from a lot of different people for doing so. Especially a lot of people in my profession. Some of the newspaper articles that were written about me I did come across as looking a bit loony. So I do know that some of my colleagues have taken a great deal of heat. There's a guy named Eben Alexander he's a neurosurgeon who had a incredible he was a total skeptic. He contracted meningitis and his brain was completely fried, and he had a fascinating near death experience, and now he works with the Monroe Institute, where they research out of body experiences and other forms of um, uh, consciousness. So he went from being strictly a neurosurgeon to it altered him completely and totally. Some of the heat that he is taking right now is absolutely incredible. Another friend of mine he's a radiologist, and he became very interested in near death experiences, and he started doing research. He's taken some the heat that he has taken has been ridiculous. So that's not uncommon. I mean, it really isn't. And some people actually become researchers, actually get to a point where they just feel burned out on it. Kenneth Ring had to take a break. He was a very well-known, well-respected near-death researcher, and he's taken a hiatus for a while, but he's still cited in research left and right. But I think that the more we talk about this, the braver we are, those of us who have had these experiences, we are going to attract people to us who have had these experiences. And when we can share with them openly about our own encounters, what that does is that gives them more courage to be available for those in their life who need someone to talk to, because they too have had such an encounter. So it really is a chain reaction sort of deal, where if in talking about it openly the way I talk about it now, people in my profession are now coming to me. It's taken a while, but they are now coming to me and saying, I know you know about this. How do I handle this? What do I say? What do I say to this client? What kind of information can I provide for them? I know clergy who are open to this also are now more available to their clergy peer group in providing information. So initially it was kind of, for me, it was a lot of people coming to me. It could be at a cocktail party. It could be at a kids play group. It could be, but they would kind of quietly come to me and talk because I was willing to be open about my own experiences. So it needs to be more normalized. And I think it's slowly is happening. But what I'm also seeing, sadly, is that there's a lot of pressure on youth right now to stay youthful.
Yeah.
And that involves young women getting, good grief, I saw a young woman who was like barely 22 and she was shot up full of Botox. But just that whole fear, all that fear, the need for perfection, the need to have the perfect relationship, the need not knowing that imperfection is a part of life and it's a part of reality and it's okay. And that kind of fosters some of that fear of death.
Yeah.
When you have to look a certain way and you can't I've had some of these girls have come in and they have beautiful complexions and they're talking about the wrinkles that they have, and my heart just breaks, or the feeling like the body dysmorphia that goes on with, because a lot of my work is also with eating disorders, just some of that not feeling like I look good enough or I am good enough, and then as they age it gets worse and worse. And so I think what we're coming up against is we're going to be coming up against younger generations as they age, who will be having an even more difficult time with death and dying than, say, my generation kind of created all this craziness.
Yeah.
And the generation before me. But I think it might be a little bit worse before it gets better.
Yeah. I must admit, I have been scared of dying, I'll be honest with you. And I've been scared of dying for quite some time. But maybe now, listening to you and your theories and your stories of what other people have said, and even some of the people in the chat room, perhaps it might give me a little bit of a bit different perspective on it. So, but you've written, as you say, you've written 13 books, 3 of them on the subject of departing visions. There's the One Last Hug Before I Go, which is a lovely title. The Mystery and Meaning of Deathbed Vision in the Year 2000. A Glimpse of Heaven, The Remarkable World of Spirituality, Transformative Experiences 2003. And then your last book, Heavenly Hugs, Comfort, Support and Hope from the Afterlife 2012. Where can people get these books if they want to read them?
Well, in the UK, definitely the easiest thing to do is just to go to Amazon.com or Barnes and Nobles in the United States.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that there is distribution in the UK for One Last Hug Before I Go.
Okay.
And I know there's distribution for A Glimpse of Heaven because my publisher for that book is in the UK. That's White Crow Publishing. So you can easily get a hold of that book. And I'm sure that I wouldn't be surprised if Heavenly Hugs doesn't have distribution in the UK. Right. But also online, there are a series of YouTube videos that I put together on departing visions. And all you have to do is just go to YouTube and plug in Carla Wills-Brandon or Deathbed Visions or Departing Visions, and you can find those. And then on Facebook, I have a page called Carla Wills-Brandon Author Digs page. And what I try to do there is I upload videos if I find something interesting that has to do with afterlife experiences, or I go ahead and put those up. The other thing that people, especially in the UK, can do, and I'm so jealous of all of you, is you have a lot of spiritualist churches in the UK.
Right.
And that's a great place to go and learn about communicating with the afterlife. And if you go to one church and you don't like it, because they're all a little bit different, go to another one.
Yeah.
The church that I use here in the States, the woman who runs it, she studied at the Arthur Findlay school. And that's always a good thing to ask, because Arthur Findlay was one of the foremost authorities on communication with the afterlife. So that's a good thing for folks to also check into and take a look at doing if they have concerns or want to learn more, or even if they are an experiencer and they don't know where to talk about that. If you go to a place like that, they're just gonna look at you and go, "Oh yeah, well that's great, that's wonderful. What'd you learn from it?" They're not going to judge or make fun of. So
anyone not sure where Arthur Finley's place is? It's down there in Stansted. So I know a few friends of mine that's been down there and done a course down there as well. So it's a good place. So what are your plans for the future then, Carla?
Well, the next book I really, really want to do is, I'm really interested in this whole idea of something leaving the body at the moment of death, because I have seen where I live, a lot of the places here this is a very, very old town. And so it goes back to the 1700s. So I know it's nothing like you guys, but for us, that's old. And the buildings, we live in a very old house. And plus there was a huge storm that took place here in 1900, the largest loss of life from a natural disaster. 9,000 people died on this island as a consequence to a hurricane in 1900. So there's a lot of spirit activity around here. And so I have seen spirit activity, and I have seen the mist of spirits that are what are called earthbound in some of the old buildings. But what I'd like to focus in on is I'd like to really focus in on what it is that leaves the body at the moment of a passing. There was a physicist in Russia who did, and is still doing, research on measuring what leaves at the moment of a passing. And he uses curling nerve photography to do that. So, but I really want to take a look at events such as my husband sitting at his father's bedside and then suddenly seeing a silvery pastel mist leave his father's body. Or the surgeons in Sweden who saw a blue whitish orb of light. This was a whole entire field of medical health professionals with respiratory therapists and anesthesiologists and surgeons and nurses. All of them saw something leave this patient's body as the patient passed. But I'd like to really take a look at that, and because I think there's really something there, and I'd like to do a whole book on that. So that's sort of where I'm headed towards next.
Right, okay. Well, we wish you luck for whatever your plans in the future. Thank you very much for talking to us. Do you have one more question?
Sorry, excuse me.
He's got a cold.
I've got a mint in my mouth.
All right, go on.
Can I just ask, has anybody, to your knowledge, ever actually weighed somebody after they've died to see if there's any significant difference?
Well, there actually are several accounts of that. There was somebody a couple of centuries ago or last century who did do that, and that's where the 21 grams for the soul, weight of the soul, came up. But then when the experience was replicated, the results were not the same. He also weighed dogs as they were passing. So I read recently that somebody else had done this. I do know if you Google "Light After Light" as a book title, because I cannot pronounce this Russian physicist's name for the life of me. If you Google that book title, and then if you get his name and you Google him and go to his site, he has a whole site devoted to how he is measuring the soul. And he has found the difference between what it is like for someone to die quickly and someone to die slowly. And it's very, very interesting research. I can just never pronounce his name.
Right, was it Light After Light or Life?
It's Light After Light.
Right.
It might be Light After. Well, there's Raymond Moody who wrote. Well, I would Google both.
Right, okay.
Because Raymond Moody wrote one book. Light After Life might be Raymond Moody.
We got a Konstantin Korotov.
There you go.
That one?
That's him.
Okay, so
that's him.
That's the man.
Man.
Right. Okay.
Yep. He has a whole website, so I would go check that out. It's very interesting.
So I'll find it and put it on the website. And talking about websites, if anyone wants to go to your website, it's carlawillsbrandon.com. Is that correct?
Yes, carlawillsbrandon.com.
Right. Okay.
Plain and simple.
Plain and simple. That's the best way to be, isn't it, really? Instead of being all, technical and what have you. So, well, thanks again anyway, Carla. It's been brilliant. And I'm sure you're giving us an insight to life after death and life going into it. So do you think there is something else out there after we've gone? Do you think there is something else out there after we've gone?
Oh, most definitely.
Right.
We still continue. We continue to evolve. We aren't alone. It's not scary. We see our deceased loved ones. The journey continues. Some of us even evolve in groups as a soul group. So most definitely.
Okay.
And I always tell my husband he's not going to get rid of me that easy.
And this one last question. Is this the same Moody that wrote about astral travel?
There is Raymond Moody.
Right. Okay.
And Raymond Moody wrote about near-death experiences. He was the first. He's a psychiatrist. He's still alive. He's a character. I know him. He's an associate.
Yeah.
I actually went to his house and spent some time with him. He's a real character. And then there is Robert Monroe. Robert Monroe, I never met him. He has passed on. He did work on the out-of-body experience. Now, one of his contemporary, a person who worked with him is a very interesting man who's a physicist named Thomas Campbell, Dr. Thomas Campbell, and he has a series of videos on YouTube that are fascinating. That talk about consciousness, what happens to consciousness after we pass. He too has had lots and lots of out-of-body experiences. Thomas Campbell, as a young physicist, helped Robert Monroe, who was a businessman who had spontaneous out-of-body experiences, and that's how he became interested. He helped Robert Monroe put together technology that would assist individuals in having out-of-body experiences. So very interesting lineages on both sides. Raymond Moody, I will be seeing him this summer at a conference.
Okay. So, well, thanks again. And if you know of anyone else who would like to come on the show and talk about similar sort of thing, please get them to contact me. Because we're always looking for
definitely.
things that are different and unusual and obviously stuff pertaining to the paranormal of sorts. So, you know, that would be great if you could pass the word around.
Not a problem.
Okay,
Not a problem
well,
at
thanks
all.
again, Carla. And you take care, my love. And hopefully we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good
Thank
night,
you so
Carla.
much for having me.
Bye.
Night.
Well, that was Carla. Well, what do you think, guys?
That was quite interesting.
That was
actually.
interesting.
I enjoyed that.
I actually enjoyed that. Did you enjoy that? That was very good, wasn't it? How do you feel about that now? How do you feel about death? What's your opinion? Put a few links on there to what she was talking about, but yeah, what a great conversation. You know,
When she first started, I wondered when she was actually going to get to it. 'Cause she was going right through her life story there.
she was.
Yeah.
Actually.
I think
I'll probably get moaned at
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
Somebody did actually say to me, "You've got to learn to control your
control
guests." But no disrespects, but if they've got something to talk about, let them speak. You know, we're not radio, as in scheduled or anything. And if they've got something to say, let them do it.
Yeah, we don't have to shut up to put a song on.
No, we don't have to stop to put a song on or put an advert on or anything like that. But no. I think that was quite interesting, and again, I'd like to thank Carla Wills-Brandon for coming on the show and talking to us, and she's given me full food for thought. I must admit, Steve. You know, I'd like to think there's something else out there after we've gone, that somebody will be there to come and get us. You know, don't you?
I would hope so. I mean, it's a very comforting thought.
Yeah, this can't be it. Come on, guys, this just can't be it.
I mean, I think it was Debs that said earlier that like you, she used to be afraid of dying, but not anymore. She now sees it as just part of the journey.
No, this is it. So, but very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. And also Madeline.
Yes, Madeline Richardson, sister of Jacky Newcombe. Don't forget, you can get her book. Let me just reiterate on these books for you. There is on Madeline's, she co-wrote a book with her sister, which was Jacky Newcombe, and the book in question was called. Somebody will probably get there before me because she's got it. Was Call Me When You Get to Heaven, a story, the amazing true story of Messages from the Other Side, personal memoir from their bestseller. Okay, so that's that one. And as I say, there are books out there from Carla that you can actually get. I'm sure you can get them. The ones in question regarding departing visions are, as I said before, One Last Hug Before I Go. What a lovely title that is. The Mystery and Meaning of Deathbed Visions, which came out in 2000. A Glimpse of Heaven, The Remarkable World of Spirituality, Transformative Experiences, 2003. And our last one, Heavenly Hugs, Comfort, Support and Hope from the Afterlife, which came out in 2012. And she said you can get them on Amazon. And so might be worth looking out. We'll have to get one or two of those books. Yeah, they do sound interesting, don't they? So, you know, might be worth looking at. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah. I mean, it's I do like that title, like you said.
Yeah. One hug before I go or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, what an interesting night.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Helen will have will probably have some of these books in the shop before long.
Right, well,
Like
what have we got on next week?
She's actually reading one of them.
What have we got next week?
Yes.
Good question.
Who's next?
Well, I'm probably going to have to do a bit of routing actually, because I'm not sure. I'll find out. I've sent him a message, but
Coming soon.
next week we should have Mr. Ben Hansen coming on for our half-hour spot. Find out when he's actually coming over to the UK and when he's going to do an investigation with us.
Yeah, and he's actually getting into equipment now as well.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, the night vision stuff.
And I've just looked on his Facebook, funny enough, and there's a radio thing called Para Geeks Radio. I'm not sure whether that's to do with him.
I don't know if he's on it. Or
oh no, it must be something he's on.
I think he's just a guest.
I think he's just a guest. So, but yeah. But if you want to find out anything about Ben Hansen, you can find out from benhansen.com. Not .co, benhansen.com. So,
yay, says Joe.
yes, he's coming back, we hope. So, as I say, he is due to be on next week. So, I have contacted him, so hopefully he remembers.
Yeah, Joe says she'll email him for you. No problem.
I've already done it. But you can do it as well. Don't forget next week, Ben. So, and we'll probably have to find somebody else to come on to fill the gap. So I'll get on to that this week. And
we might even be able to set a task for our Mr. Mahogany.
Oh yeah, you never know. That's if he's coming.
Yes, I have to see what he's got.
I know he's not been too good at the moment.
And hopefully he'll be feeling better.
Yeah. So, but that's next week, which is the end of April. Would you believe? So next weekend is not this weekend, but next weekend is Easter. So so when we get into April,
Joseph gave me the hope that she'll be here.
So for those of you who wanted to want to have a reading by Alison Winrider, we've booked her back in. She's booked herself back in for the 24th of April. So if you're interested in having a reading from her, and
yeah, you'll have to come on. You will have to come on the phone or Skype.
Yes, so that she can do that for you.
Yeah, she can't do it through the chat room, unfortunately.
Yeah. So basically, that's about it for this evening.
Having said that, you can do a reading over Skype as well.
Yeah, I could actually. So if anyone wants me to do a reading over Skype, I can do that for them and see how it goes.
Yeah, but I think your one might be a bit too precise for public.
Oh yeah, mine are a little bit too precise for public, but I'm prepared to give anyone a reading over Skype. So Simply Joe said she was going to come along and get a reading from me as well.
Yes, he did come in the chat room last time, didn't he, Ben?
What's that? Yes.
Yes, and
Mr. Henson did.
And he caught them all out saying what a lovely bum
so
he's
you've
got
to be careful, ladies. If you start talking about his backside, try and get some decent questions in this time. So, but we're going to call it a night, to be honest with you. Not just for the bacon sarnie, as you've all been going on about. You've got a telephone though, haven't you, Joe?
Yes, just ring us up, Joe.
Don't forget, Saturday, if you're over in Derby, you'll see us there.
And you can go on Skype, it is free.
Yes, it is free to have Skype.
Yeah, all you need is a mic and a webcam.
So don't forget, guys.
Every Wednesday night.
You'll find us here every Wednesday. And I'm sure we'll find you as well. What do you say? What do you think, Steve?
I think we'll find you.
Do you think they'll support us?
I think they will. I think Rosie's definitely going to be in, giving Joe a bit of opposition for Ben.
Yeah, and don't forget, if you do know anyone wants to come on the show, tell them to contact me and we can sort something out. Okay?
You're in the right place. Online, on the web, and on air. All over the world.
Yeah, and don't forget, if you are part of the group, we'd also want to speak to you about that as well. So come on and tell us about your paranormal group, organisation, or anything that you're involved in at the moment.
We've not had a group in for a while, have we?
No. So until next time, all we've left to say to you guys is keep
the paranormal friendly.
Good night and God bless. Thank you.
Night, everyone. See you next week.